Hello everyone. We hope you're doing well. We're doing great, and we truly appreciate your ongoing support. We'd like to briefly address some comments regarding our audiobook series. Rest assured, progress is ongoing. That said, your feedback is vital. If there's a novel you particularly enjoy and want to hear more of, please let us know in the comments. Each chapter requires a financial investment, so we can only continue series that receive strong audience interest. Although we retain core names and plot lines, we make significant editorial changes to enhance clarity, pacing, and immersion. These are not simple recitations. We work hard to deliver a polished, thoughtful listening experience. Without sufficient feedback or engagement, we may need to discontinue a series. So if you're enjoying something, don't stay silent. Your input truly matters. Note, our default audio speed is 3x. If that's too fast, let us know. We're happy to adjust it. Interested in early access to unreleased audiobooks? Visit our Patreon. You'll get to experience new content before it reaches YouTube. Just to clarify, I'm a fan like you. I've purchased these novels and adapted them with care, while respecting all rights and guidelines. For updates, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, X. YouTube update: recently, YouTube flagged some of our content for including mature themes, realistic violence, and darker story elements. As a result, we've decided to stop uploading anything that violates YouTube's guidelines. If you'd like access to the full, uncut versions including the more intense or mature content, you can find them on our Patreon page, where we upload everything first. Available now on Patreon: Shattered Innocence transmigrated into a novel as an extra. Transmigrating over 10,000 years late, I was forced to become a mighty presence. I, the celestial dragon, rule the heavens through the double gate, reigning supreme in countless worlds with beast taming, Tower of God sequence strength, cultivation when you take things to the extreme. Naruto is an Uchiha with cyst. WTF, the centuries-old ancestor in our family take concubine again. Plus 18, Ichi, reincarnated in Bleach as a wizard. Thanks for listening and happy listening. But he hadn't dared to act due to the high risk involved. I'm not interested in that, Fang Hang said, shaking his head. I've heard the Western District Federation has a way to unlock the lock. That's what I'm more interested in. Ah. That. It's true. Apparently, the Northern District Federation got their hands on some tech from the spawn creatures. Many players interested in this have already made their way there. The Central Federation has always been strict about controlling the lock, and they've immediately raised objections. Most of the online information has been blocked, but a few determined folks have still managed to dig it up. Fang Hang bit his lip. It seemed the information about the lock was accurate. Old Black, I need a ticket to the Western District Federation. The sooner, the better. That's going to be a challenge. What do you mean? The civilian train lines have been completely cancelled, and all air routes to the Western District Federation are blocked. Most of the railway passages have been suspended, except for a few special trains. The borders are completely sealed off. Old Black, you can help me with that, right? Hey, indeed. The Western District Federation has been using the lock as bait, constantly recruiting reliable players. Every day, several special trains are sent to transport players interested in unlocking the lock to the Western region. Old Black said, pausing for a moment. He let out a light chuckle, lowering his voice as he continued, it's open to anyone, even the most wanted criminals from various countries. The Western District Federation welcomes everyone. So, you've noticed, right, Fang Hang? There's something off about all this. Interesting, Fang Hang mused, considering the implications. So, can you get me a ticket? I need the soonest available train. Of course. You asked, so it's no problem at all. Leave it to me, Mr. Fang. Chapter 2809. The train. The express train to the Western District Federation, the flowing light. Woo. Under the night sky, the train let out a long whistle as it sped forward along the tracks. Dear passengers, I am the train conductor. Ahead, there has been a sudden appearance of a black fog zone. We are now entering the black fog domain. The train will accelerate, and to avoid any accidents, please fasten your seatbelts. Thank you for your cooperation. In a VIP room of the carriage, Fang Hang noticed that his phone had completely lost signal. He couldn't help but put it down and looked out the window. Encountered a game black fog. Recently, incidents of game monsters invading the real world had been happening more frequently. Since the game invasion zones would generate black fog that affected perception, these events were collectively referred to by the Federation as black fog events. The areas affected by the spread of the black fog were also called black fog zones. The scenery outside the window was shrouded in a thin layer of black fog, quickly retreating behind them. Fang Hang's gaze swept over the woman sitting across from him, resting with her eyes closed. Around 27 or 28 years old, wearing a pair of blue light glasses, with a neat short haircut, dressed in a beige knitted sweater. The jacket placed nearby had the logo of a securities company printed on it. Feng Heng recognized her. He remembered that the famous Flying Man incident 2 years ago involved a user of that very securities company. Since boarding the train, the woman had been typing on her blue notebook computer. Perhaps realizing that the internet connection had been lost, the woman furrowed her brow slightly, closed her laptop, and her eyes inadvertently met Feng Heng's. "Do we know each other?" "No, we don't." Feng Heng shook his head, about to close his eyes and rest again. But the next moment, the entire train suddenly came to a screeching halt. "Gaji!" The sharp, screeching sound of metal grinding echoed in his ears as Feng Heng's body lurched forward, but the seatbelt he had fastened tightly held him firmly in place. Boom. Boom. The train shook violently twice before the screeching sounds finally stopped, and the train came to a complete standstill. "It seems we've run into trouble." The 4 people in the VIP compartment exchanged glances, and then, in perfect synchrony, began unfastening their seatbelts. The sound of commotion came from outside the compartment. "Damn it! Did we crash? Stupid Federation. How long has this junk train been running? Don't they ever replace them? Where's the taxpayers' money going? Almost got me killed. You messed up my business. I'm going to file a complaint." Gradually, curses and angry shouts from the passengers of the other cars could be heard. The 4 in the VIP room, including Feng Heng, remained silent. They checked their conditions, then got up from their seats and opened the window to assess the situation outside. Troublesome. He had thought that once he boarded the train, it would take him straight to the Western District Federation's territory, but he didn't expect that the journey would still be interrupted halfway. Feng Heng also leaned his head out of the window to take a look. The entire train and the tracks were enveloped in a thick black fog. He could see that the front half of the train had completely derailed. This was bad. It seemed like the train wouldn't be able to continue running for a while. Was it an accident caused by the black fog? Feng Heng squinted his eyes. Troublesome. He had thought that once he boarded the train, it would take him straight to the Western District Federation's territory, but he didn't expect that the journey would still be interrupted halfway. It seemed that the rest of the trip would have to be made on his own. The black fog possessed a special power capable of affecting perception, but it wasn't much of a problem. With his current abilities, leaving alone wouldn't be an issue. "Two of you." The middle-aged man, who had remained silent up until now, stood up, glanced at Feng Heng and the woman, and said, "Everyone, it looks like our train has run into some trouble. We've entered the danger zone of the black fog area, and we could be attacked by monsters at any moment." The woman sitting across from Feng Heng had already regained her composure, putting her notebook back into the backpack behind her. "What are you trying to say? Anyone sitting in this VIP room is not an ordinary person, so I'll be straightforward," the middle-aged man said, opening the window. "Our goal should be the recruitment center of the Western District Federation. We've run into some trouble, so why not form a team? That way, we can look out for each other and ensure safety along the way. What do you all think?" He gave a subtle nod to his companion beside him. "Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Saga, and this is Zate. We're brothers. We're very familiar with this route and can be of help." Sugwantong. Sugwantong briefly introduced herself, agreeing to cooperate. Then, her gaze turned toward Feng Heng. The 3 of them in the compartment all looked at Feng Heng. "Ahem, I'm Feng Heng." As soon as the others heard his name, their expressions shifted subtly, and they all stared at him. "Feng Heng? The world lord of the vampire world? No, just a coincidence. Same name. Ha, I thought so. You almost gave me a heart attack. I thought I was meeting a big shot." Zaka slapped his chest. "Speaking of which, the vampire bloodline is expensive outside these days. I've heard it's all thanks to the world lord Feng Heng. I know a friend who's from the vampire bloodline, and now he's flying high in the game. Last time I had dinner with him, he was saying." Feng Heng interrupted Zaka, confirming, "Do you all know the way to the Western District Federation's recruitment center?" "I've been there once on business." "Good." Feng Heng nodded in agreement. "The train is seriously damaged, and it looks like it won't be repaired in a short time. Staying here would just waste time. Let's leave as soon as possible." "I think so too." Zaka pushed open the door to the VIP room. Outside, in the train corridor, passengers were crowded near the front, with some already breaking the windows to crawl outside and investigate. Just as Feng Heng and the others were about to follow, suddenly, an announcement came through the intercom. "Dear passengers, this is your conductor, Harvey. Due to an attack from black fog monsters, the train has derailed and can no longer continue moving forward. We are still in the black fog area. Please do not open the doors to prevent monster attacks. We have already called for external rescue. Please remain in your seats and wait for assistance. Thank you for your understanding and support." Hearing the announcement, the passengers who had been climbing out of the windows immediately froze and quickly retreated inside. Damn. The black fog. The passenger who had been complaining loudly, cursing and threatening to file a complaint, had now fallen silent. Their face had turned pale, and they sat tightly clutching the briefcase in their hands. Damn it, who was the idiot saying they were going to smash the window earlier? Stop cursing. Hurry up and pull the curtains down, what are you waiting for? Are you trying to get us all killed? And you guys, come over and help. Find a way to block the windows. The carriage quickly became chaotic again, as passengers, now realizing the black fog had arrived, scrambled to protect themselves. Feng Heng and the others exchanged glances. Su Guantong spoke up, there should be more people on this train heading to the Western District Federation's recruitment center, right? What about the others? Chapter 2810, Attack. Most of them were in the front carriages, separated from the normal passengers. You two should be like us brothers, special seats added later. Saga said with a hopeless smile, I heard that this train is newly added, and many high-ranking members of the Federation, including royal family members, are taking this opportunity to return together. Just as he spoke, the train conductor's announcement sounded again. This is the conductor. Sorry to disturb you again, but we've just received an important message. There is an important person aboard. Mr. Sun, a Federation senator, has a granddaughter named Lexi, who suffered a heart attack due to shock. Lexi is now in the first-class carriage. If anyone has medical skills or believes they can protect Miss Lexi, please immediately head to the first-class carriage. The Federation will offer generous compensation. Thank you again. Upon hearing this, Saga, who had been about to leave the room, stopped. Su Guantong also stopped. Feng Heng, curious, looked at the others and asked, What? Are you guys interested in her? Hey, do you know who she is? Lexi. Her grandfather is the highest-ranking Federation senator in the Western District, a military department person. I heard he's one of the key supporters of the Star Map project. If we can get close to her, we'll be set. Zaka's eyes sparkled with excitement as he looked at the others. So, what do you think? Should we go find Lexi? Yeah, we can consider it. Su Guantong nodded. Alright. Feng Heng thought to himself, sure, if I can protect Lexi, maybe I can find a way to unlock the ritual faster. Currently, the Black Fog invasion was at most of intermediate game intensity. The threat wasn't very high. Saving one more person wouldn't take too long. Let's go. Saga and his brothers 8 led the way, using their bodies to clear the people blocking the pathway, passing through carriage after carriage as they made their way toward the front VIP carriage. They kept going until they passed the 8th carriage ahead. Zate struggled to open the large door connecting the 2 carriages. Be careful. Su Guantong called out sharply. Not far away, 2 black creatures, lurking at the front of the carriage, heard the noise, quickly turned around, and immediately crawled toward Zate. Zate steadied himself, but his heart sank with panic. What the hell? At first glance, the creatures looked like spider-like monsters, moving quickly across the ground with thick, protruding limbs. Their bodies were covered in a layer of red armor. They resembled oversized king crabs, but not the kind that moved sideways. Bang! 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 Su Guantong and Saga, standing behind Z8, stepped forward simultaneously, drawing their guns and aiming to fire. Pa! Pa 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 pa! The bullets hit the outer shell of the spider-like creatures but were all deflected. What kind of monster was this? How was its shell so hard? The spider-like creatures moved quickly, their external armor deflecting the bullet attacks. In the blink of an eye, they had already closed in on Zate. Damn it! Seeing that they couldn't fight back, Zate cursed loudly and quickly tried to close the carriage door again. Step back. Just as Zate reached for the door handle, he suddenly felt someone yank him backward. He saw a figure flash past him, followed by the dull sound of a bang near his ear. What the hell? Zate turned his head and saw Feng Heng holding a metal rod, swinging it and sending the 2 spider monsters flying. What the hell? Zate stared at Feng Heng, his face filled with shock. The spider creatures, whose exoskeletons could resist bullet attacks, had their shells completely shattered by Feng Heng's metal rod in one strike. When Feng Heng hit the 2 creatures, their health was already completely drained. They were sent flying several meters, landing on the seats. After a few moments of struggling and twitching, they could no longer move. Everyone looked at Feng Heng, their eyes filled with wariness. One strike. Not only had he shattered the exoskeleton that could resist bullets, but he had also killed the monsters in one blow. Who was this guy? His power was terrifying. Feng Heng held the metal rod and walked into the disordered carriage, glancing around. His eyes stopped at the broken window and he said, I think they're black fog monsters. This carriage probably just got attacked. Let's go, the VIP carriage should be a couple of carriages ahead. I hope they haven't run into trouble, Fang Heng said as he walked forward a few steps. When he noticed the others hadn't followed, he turned back, puzzled, and asked, "What's wrong?" 16, 25 and nothing. Saga laughed awkwardly and walked up with the others. Haha, we were just thinking, brother, you're really strong. Could it be that you've been in the advanced game? Yeah, I've been to the advanced game world. Fang Heng gave a light hum. The monster's exoskeleton could withstand gun damage, and its power level was about on par with the intermediate game level. In the real world, though, it was even harder to deal with because players lacked the game bonuses. So, this black fog was quite a tough challenge. Fang Heng glanced at the three of them again and asked, "What about you guys?" "We're far behind. We've only been in the intermediate game world for less than a year." Saga realized that they had encountered someone with immense strength and decided to latch on. He moved closer to Fang Heng and said, "So, brother, your strength is amazing. We'll stick with you from now on. If you need anything, just give us the word." Su Guantong studied Fang Heng. Although she didn't say anything, her eyes shimmered with curiosity. As they spoke, they continued to walk into the carriage, checking it over. In addition to the broken window, there were several corpses on the ground. Their stomachs were cut open, and they died miserably. They died not long ago. Some of the corpses showed signs of a struggle before they died. Zate, unlike his brother, was quiet throughout the journey. At this moment, he crouched down next to one of the corpses and examined it, saying, "I recognize this person. I saw him when we boarded the train. He is a high-level player. It should be correct. The monsters broke through from here. Based on the positions of the corpses, they were probably killed while trying to protect the team during their retreat," Zate said, then cautiously followed Fang Heng to the front of the carriage. The door of the carriage ahead was made of metal alloy, tightly shut, with several deep claw marks on it. It seemed like the carriage had been attacked by spider-like creatures. Saga tried stepping forward and turned the handle to open the door. The door handle made a click-click sound. "It won't turn, it's locked." "I'll do it." Fang Heng stepped forward, ready to force the door open when suddenly, a wary voice came from the other side of the door. "Who's there?" Chapter 2811, Settled, "It's us." Saga immediately said, "I'm Saga. I was invited to participate in the Western District Federation's recruitment. We just heard the broadcast and came to help." There was a pause from the other side of the carriage, followed by the rustling sound of movement. The door slowly opened a crack, revealing several dark muzzles. Once the door was fully opened, the young guard sized up the carriage behind Fang Heng and his group. Seeing no trace of the spider monsters, he furrowed his brow and asked, "What about the spider monsters? Didn't you see them on the way here?" "We took care of them." "Huh? Took care of them? So strong?" The guard raised an eyebrow, then nodded and said, "Come in and talk." Fang Heng and the others immediately entered the carriage, with the guard closing the alloy metal door behind them. Inside the carriage, several people had gathered. They all looked up and examined the new arrivals, casting scrutinizing glances at Fang Heng and his group. A group of guards gathered together, firmly guarding the back and the entrance of the last section of the carriage, preventing anyone else from entering the front. Saga sensed something was off and gestured toward the guards, asking, "Hey, what's going on here?" "We came to protect Miss Lexi after hearing the emergency broadcast." "Where's Miss Lexi?" "It looks like everyone is here." A middle-aged man walked out from among the guards at the front of the carriage. The man had a sharp, angular face, giving off an imposing presence even without speaking. "Everyone, I am Bakal, the leader of the security team, responsible for Miss Lexi's safety. Miss Lexi was just startled and suffered a heart attack. She's currently receiving emergency treatment, and her condition is temporarily under control. She's resting in the back carriage now." "What? She's already fine?" Many of the people present had only come after hearing about the danger to Lexi. Upon hearing that the crisis had been resolved, they began to murmur discontentedly. "Wasn't this a waste of time?" "It's only temporarily stabilized," Bakal continued, his voice steady. "The doctor has advised immediate transport to a large hospital for further treatment, or there's a real risk of the situation worsening at any moment. The train is currently in a black fog zone, all signals are blocked by the fog. The Federation is unaware that the train has derailed and can no longer continue its journey. You don't need to be too pessimistic. Once the Federation realizes the train didn't make it to the next station, they'll quickly notice the anomaly. Based on our predictions, the Federation's reinforcements will arrive in 5-8 hours. However, as I've already mentioned, the young lady's condition is very unstable and requires immediate medical attention." "I understand." One of the players snapped his fingers, then said, "So, you want us to protect Miss Lexi during this time, and escort her out of the black fog zone, right?" No, it's not like that." Bakal shook his head. "The monsters outside, you must have seen them when you passed through the carriage. They're extremely dangerous, and their thick exoskeletons can even resist gunfire. Trying to escort the young lady out in this situation is too risky. So, what do you plan to do? Stay here and wait for reinforcements? Or try to fix the train? We've already checked the train. The front section is completely derailed, and repairs will take time. Considering the possibility of monster attacks during the repair process, even under the best circumstances, it will take at least 10 hours to complete the repairs. Enough with the small talk. A middle-aged man with a fierce expression stepped forward and asked, "Just say it straight. What exactly do you want us to do?" Bakul said, "We need to completely destroy the black fog and obtain the core of the black fog. Once the black fog is lifted, we can guarantee the young lady's safety during evacuation." At this, the entire carriage fell silent, listening intently to the words of the military officer. Feng Heng glanced around at the others, feeling puzzled. The core of the black fog? What in the world was that? The middle-aged man glared fiercely at Bakul. "Bakul, do you think we're idiots? You want us to go take down the Tower of Black Fog? What's the difference between that and sending us to our deaths?" "We understand the risks involved," Bakul replied, unfazed. "However, anyone who manages to acquire the core of the Black Fog will, within my authority, be exempt from all future approval processes. I will grant you direct access to the recruitment list for the Western Region Star Map project." Bakul scanned the group. "This is the best plan we've come up with so far. If you're unwilling, we won't force you. You can stay here and guard the area, hoping that Ms. Lexi holds on until reinforcements arrive. If everything goes smoothly, once the situation is resolved, you'll receive a compensation package from the Federation." The players exchanged whispers among themselves once again. There was no way they were going to risk their lives for this. The players gathered here all had some level of strength, and staying together would increase their chances of survival. Not to mention, they could still trek their way into some compensation. Feng Heng quietly turned to Zaka and asked, "Zaka, what exactly is the core of the Black Fog?" Zaka looked at Feng Heng with some surprise, thinking to himself that this guy's power was terrifying, but how could he not know about the Black Fog core? The core of the Black Fog is a special unknown metallic core. Its appearance is similar to an ordinary stone, but it has faint energy ripples. Su Guantong, who had been listening nearby, spoke up. "Recently, many game and real-world passages have been spreading through the Black Fog. The Federation discovered that the source of the Black Fog spread is a special pillar of the game. Once the pillar of the game is destroyed, the Black Fog will dissipate. The core of the Black Fog is a residue left behind after the pillar of the game is shattered. Currently, there is very little information about the specific function of the Black Fog core, but we know that federations from various regions are collecting them." "Ah, I see." Feng Heng nodded secretly. Since the frequent Black Fog incidents began to emerge in the real world, Feng Heng had mostly been occupied with the Holy Realm and Ouroboros, so he hadn't paid much attention to the Black Fog. It sounded like the Black Fog core was some kind of central artifact. What he needed to do was to completely destroy the source device of the Black Fog. Not a big problem. After thinking it over, Feng Heng raised his head and said, "Everyone, I'm going to check the situation outside. Anyone want to join me?" "Hey! Are you crazy?" Zaka immediately stopped him, his voice filled with concern. "Feng Heng, don't be impulsive. The outside is a black fog zone, with a lot of monsters. It's fine. I'm just going out to take a look. If anything dangerous happens, I'll come back." Zaka and Zaid exchanged a cautious glance, shrinking their necks a little. They didn't say anything more. "Well, if you're going, we won't stop you. Just be careful." "Look? What's there to look at?" Was he going to observe the big spiders? The spider monsters were too powerful for them. If they were in the game, they might have some confidence in facing the creatures, but outside the game, with the number of monsters, they definitely wouldn't dare to take them on. The players in the carriage looked on with mixed expressions as they saw Feng Heng leave alone and head to the back of the train. Good grief, there really were people who were fooled into running out to their deaths? Still, just one person. Everyone knew that the pillar of the game was located in the source area of the Black Fog, which was also the place where monsters poured out. It was the most dangerous spot. Su Guantong watched Feng Heng's departure with a peculiar glint in her eyes. Chapter 2812, Carriage. Feng Heng returned to the previous car and jumped out through the broken glass window, tightly gripping the metal rod in his hand. The surrounding black fog could block some perception. But for Feng Heng, all living beings within a 200-meter radius were clearly captured. Furthermore, with the lifeblood ripple effect, the enemy's tracking range had reached 500 meters. Hey, spider-bodied monsters! Compared to the turtle shells of the Holy Court in the Holy Realm, they were simply too fragile. They were nothing to worry about. They were coming. Feng Heng's eyelid flickered. A spider-bodied monster suddenly leaped out from the mist on the right. Woo! Fang Heng raised his right arm in advance and swung it forward with great force, cutting through the air with a sharp sound. Crack! The exoskeleton of the spider-bodied monster shattered, and it was sent flying by Fang Heng's heavy strike with the rod. Every spider-bodied creature that leaped out from the black fog, attempting to close in on Fang Heng, was inevitably knocked flying by the metal rod with a booming sound, each strike fatal. In less than half a minute, over 10 spider-bodied monsters in the vicinity were cleared. The source of the black fog, the pillar of the game. Fang Heng murmured softly to himself. Sensing a large number of spider-bodied creatures gathering ahead, he moved forward in the direction of his perception. As he went deeper into the black fog, more and more spider-bodied creatures surged out, gathering densely. Woo! Woo! Fang Heng swung the metal rod continuously, knocking the spider monsters that lunged from the black fog flying. Now, with his greatly increased attributes, Fang Heng's power far surpassed that of ordinary players. Just relying on his physical attributes and the explosive power of the iron rod, even if the number of spider monsters increased by several hundred times, they couldn't pose a real threat to him. Fang Heng swung the iron rod, cutting a bloody path through the mass of spider monsters. Soon, a black, prism-like pillar about 2 meters tall appeared ahead. The pillar simply stood there in the middle of the flat ground. The pillar of the game? Fang Heng murmured to himself, slowly approaching the black crystal pillar while carefully observing it. At the top of the pillar, a black spherical vortex began to form in space, and spider creatures were continuously emerging from it. The exterior of the black prism was covered by a layer of translucent black metal. Through the semi-transparent layer, Fang Heng could see that beneath the surface, dark red blood vessels, resembling veins, were flowing like an intricate network. What the hell was this? Fang Heng felt a hint of unease in his heart, his brow furrowing. Without hesitation, he gripped the metal rod tightly and forcefully slammed it into the prism. Crack! With a heavy blow, a crack appeared on the entire crystal pillar. Hey, it's pretty tough. Fang Heng chuckled lightly. Well then, let's try again. Inside the carriage, the group fell into a long silence. Although the army officer had offered a formal star map project slot in exchange, none of the players in the carriage were willing to accept the commission. It was too dangerous. There was no chance of survival. To eliminate the black fog, one would need to enter the deepest part of it and somehow destroy the pillar of the game amidst the attacks of countless spider monsters. Was that a joke? According to calculations, based on the level of the game invasion, the pillar of the game had an HP ranging from 1 million to several hundred million. Even if a small player team continuously attacked it, it would take a long time to deplete the pillar's health. No matter how you looked at it, it was an impossible mission. The Federation officers still didn't understand the game well enough. Hey, that guy's been out for more than 10 minutes. Why hasn't he come back? Saga felt a bit worried. He glanced at the metal door at the entrance of the carriage and continued, it was supposed to be just a quick check on the situation, but it's taking too long. Could it be that they've run into some trouble? Su Guantong's eyes also showed some concern. She could tell that Fang Heng's strength was very formidable. His individual abilities were enough to handle the spider creatures. Under normal circumstances, he shouldn't be in any danger. However, if that guy got too overconfident and got too close to the black fog's pillar of the game, the closer he got to the pillar of the game, the greater the increase in the number of monsters. At that point, he could very likely fall into a crisis, and it would be difficult to retreat. Suddenly, there was some commotion among the guards in the front of the carriage. Commander Backle furrowed his brows as if confirming something with the guards. Saga curiously glanced over in that direction and whispered, "What are they saying? Is something unexpected happening?" "I don't know, bro. Look, he's coming toward us." Saga immediately closed his mouth and watched as Backle, surrounded by several guards, walked over to them. "Sir, what's going on?" "It's nothing. It doesn't concern you. There's been some special situation, and I need to confirm something." Backle walked past Saga, signaling for his subordinate guards to open the metal door linking to the previous carriage. As the door opened, Saga and his group immediately noticed something unusual. What's going on? The black fog that had been occupying the carriage was gone? Peeking inside, they saw that the layer of black fog that had been enveloping the outside was now completely dispersed. How could this be? Su Guantong suddenly thought of something and turned to look at Saga and Zate beside her. A Tier 2 mutated game invasion wouldn't end so easily, unless someone had dealt with the black fog's pillar of the game. Had the Federation army arrived? No, thinking about the timing, the Federation wouldn't even know that something had happened here yet, so they couldn't have sent reinforcements. Then who could it be? Could it be Fang Heng? "You guys, go out and check." Backle's face showed excitement as he waved for his subordinate guards to enter the external carriage to investigate. Soon, several of the accompanying guard team entered the rear carriage and climbed out through the broken windows to check. The black fog had truly dissipated. Upon seeing the scene outside, the guards' eyes were filled with shock. For a moment, they stood still in disbelief, almost stunned. It looked as though the area outside the train had gone through a fierce battle, with large piles of spider monster corpses scattered across the ground. The bodies of numerous spider monsters had piled up along the path, forming a small trail that led to a forward passage. It looked as though someone had fought their way through, carving a bloody path despite the attacks from the spider monsters. "You guys! Report the situation immediately." Upon hearing the shout from inside the carriage, the guards snapped back to their senses. Two of them immediately returned to the carriage through the broken window and reported, "Sir, we've confirmed that the black fog has dissipated outside." Huh. Bakul let out a sigh of relief upon hearing his subordinate's report. As long as the black fog had dissipated, it was fine. If the young lady had been in any danger, they wouldn't be able to live with it. Bakul looked at the guards behind him. "You two, go to the back and report to the young lady. Try to contact headquarters and prepare vehicles for evacuation immediately." Understood. After Bakul finished outlining the evacuation plan, he couldn't help but furrow his brow. But speaking of which, how did the black fog suddenly dissipate? Just as he was thinking, the sound of the guards shouting came from outside. Chapter 2813, Mercenaries. Who's there? Outside the train, several guards held their guns in a defensive posture, their faces serious. Not far away, a figure walked along the path formed by the piles of spider monster corpses, slowly approaching the parked train. "It's me, Feng Heng." Feng Heng gradually revealed himself, slowly walking towards the carriage from a distance. In his hand, he held a black stone left behind from the shattered pillar of the game. "I've taken care of the pillar of the game. Your commission is complete." A player? The player who had left alone earlier? The guards' hearts skipped a beat as they saw Feng Heng. Their eyes were immediately drawn to the black stone in his hand, filled with disbelief. One person? He did it all by himself? Destroyed the entire pillar of the game? This level of black fog had always required the Federation to deploy official military units to completely eradicate it. Feng Heng looked at the guards, who stood frozen and silent, and frowned as he asked, "Where's Captain Bakul?" Did he mean what he said? The guards swallowed nervously, cautiously glancing at Feng Heng. "See, Captain. He's still inside the carriage." "Good." Feng Heng spoke as he put away the stone and climbed back into the carriage through the broken window. Bakul and the players still inside the carriage looked at Feng Heng, who had just returned from outside, with surprised expressions on their faces. It's him? Everyone had seen Feng Heng leave earlier. Now, seeing him return unharmed and recalling the dissipated black fog, they immediately felt an unrealistic premonition in their hearts. No way. Could it be him? It wasn't until Feng Heng tossed the core of the black fog high into the air that the players' eyes widened in shock. Good heavens. The stone of the black fog. It really was him. He single-handedly took down the black fog? Where did this guy come from? Even Bakul's eyes showed surprise as he looked at Feng Heng. You did it alone? Of course. Do you see anyone else here, Captain Bakul? Feng Heng is a member of our team. He took on your commission and risked his life to go destroy the pillar of the game. Before Feng Heng could answer, Saga hurriedly stepped forward. When he had first seen Feng Heng leaving, he was also startled but quickly realized. Time to hitch a ride. At this point, what are you waiting for if you're not going to latch onto someone's leg? Saga looked at Bakul and asked, "Do you remember our previous agreement? You wouldn't go back on your word, right?" "Of course." Bakul took a deep breath, regaining his composure and wiping the surprise from his eyes. He looked at Feng Heng and nodded. "Thank you for your help. I will keep my word. Although the black fog threat has been eliminated, we are still quite a distance from the Western District Federation. I've already sent someone to contact the Western District Federation headquarters, and we'll have an armored vehicle to escort us back soon. It should arrive within an hour. During this time, I ask that you and your team continue to provide protection." Bakul understood the situation clearly. Their team was the only one here in the black fog area. Who else could it be besides Feng Heng? Claiming credit for this was out of the question. Feng Heng glanced at Saga, who was desperately signaling him, and nodded, "All right." 3 hours later, Feng Heng and his team successfully entered the Western District Federation's capital. The four of them sat together in an SUV, heading towards the Federation's Star Map Control Center. "Damn, bro, you're way too strong." Saga sat next to Feng Heng, his eyes full of admiration as he looked at Feng Heng. "You're not some unknown person in the game. Feng Heng is probably just an alias, right?" "Hey." Feng Heng only smiled and didn't respond further. Haha, sorry. I'm just rambling." Feng Heng took out the black stone from his hand, Do you know the use of the core of the black fog? Bro, you're giving me too much credit. This thing is my first time seeing it. But I've heard that the Federation buys it at a high price. Fang Heng put the stone away. When he obtained the core of the black fog, he received a game prompt. The core of the black fog could be directly exchanged for the King of Gods points. 1,000,000 points. But because of that, Fang Heng felt something was off. The pillar of the game was a product of the game, and yet after shattering the pillar of the game, he obtained the core of the black fog. Wasn't that strange? If the pillar of the game existed to spread the game and completely consume humanity, then why would the core of the black fog, which could be accepted by the game, and even purchased by the game for a large number of King of Gods points, appear after destroying the black fog pillar? Wasn't the game indirectly encouraging players to destroy the pillars of the game? It felt extremely wrong. If you were designing the game, any player who dared to destroy the pillar of the game would have at least 1,000,000 King of Gods points deducted from them. By the way, Fang Heng, Saga interrupted Fang Heng's thoughts and said, Sir Bakul just messaged me. He's already waiting for us at the Federation Star Map Control Center. He'll accompany us to complete the registration process. Really? That was quick. Su Guantong, sitting in the front seat, turned around and asked, So, have we officially become part of the Western District Federation Star Map project? Not officially part of it, more like mercenaries, outsourced, I guess. Saga explained, the Star Map project is mainly handled by the military department of the Western District Federation. Bakul's authority can only help us bypass some of the more tedious preliminary procedures. To apply for formal inclusion, we would still need to go through further applications and assessments, which are more difficult and involve much more complicated review processes. But it doesn't affect us much. The Western District Federation only needs to recruit powerful players to do some tasks in the game. As long as we help them out, we earn contribution points. If we only want to unlock the game lock, we must meet the required contribution points as mercenaries. There's no need to formally join the Western District Federation military. Su Guantong nodded and didn't ask further. Most players who come to the Western District Federation to participate in the Star Map project were enticed by the unlock method and never really intended to become official employees. Also, I heard that after joining the Star Map project, we may need to form teams for missions. If possible, we should consider forming a team together, it would be safer. Saga glanced at Fang Heng as he spoke. Okay. Fang Heng responded briefly, closing his eyes to rest. Saga immediately grinned. He noticed that Fang Heng didn't seem to like talking much. That must be a common trait of experts. Saga shut his mouth as well. No need to worry about that. As long as he could hitch a ride on the big leg, it was good enough. An hour later, the vehicle entered the military's restricted zone and finally stopped by the roadside. The driver guard got out of the car, opened the door, and nodded at the group, Thank you for your help. Sir Bakul has already processed your identity levels through internal procedures. Please follow me, I'll take you to the Star Map Control Center. Chapter 2814, Outsource Thank you. Fang Heng stepped off the vehicle and looked up at the massive, half-spherical building in front of him. Interesting. From the outside, the Star Map Control Center resembled a hemisphere, its exterior covered in hexagonal honeycomb-like scales. Each piece of nanoglass refracted into a gradient of iridescent colors depending on the angle of the light. It bore a striking resemblance to the architecture of the spawns. It seemed that this control building was also crafted by the spawns. The main control building's Phase 3 is still under construction. Sir Bakul is waiting for us in the lobby on the first floor of the outer region. Please follow me. After registering their information at the security checkpoint, the group entered the complex, passing through an outdoor garden before finally reaching the main control building's lobby. Bakul was sitting on a sofa near the entrance, waiting. Report, sir. The people have been safely brought in. You can wait outside. Bakul stood up from the sofa, glanced at Fang Heng and the others, and said, You've all worked hard coming all this way. It's all thanks to you for your help. The young lady has already been sent to the hospital right away, and her condition has stabilized. No need to say more, please follow me. Bakul led them toward an elevator inside the lobby while explaining the current situation. As you all know, the Black Fog events have been happening frequently in the world due to the game's invasion. To counter this, the Western District Federation has established the Star Map project. To make this work, we need a large number of capable players to join us. We don't expect absolute loyalty from you to the Federation. Our relationship is more of a partnership, similar to that of mercenaries. In exchange, the Federation is offering rewards, such as high-tier in-game items, real-world money, and even ways to unlock high-tier locks through a special ritual. As he mentioned unlocking the locks, Bakul gave a slight smile. I'm now taking you into area of the Star Map control base. This area was specifically built for mercenaries recruited by the Western region. Your activities will be confined to Area A. I can assure you that as long as you accumulate enough contribution points, the rewards you can exchange will be the same as those available to the soldiers trained by our Western District Federation. Of course, if you share the same ideals as us, you're welcome to join the Western District Federation. Bakel handed out the identity cards to everyone one by one. These are the identity cards issued according to the information on your profiles. The identity cards contain your identification details as well as point balances. By the way, I forgot to mention, most of the missions we release are in-game missions, and they require a team to complete. The team should have at least 3 members and at most 7. The areas you can access include, but are not limited to, the training ground in Area A, the lounge, the information query center, the points exchange, the library, the spa, the wellness area, and other domains. All these areas are open to you for free. However, if you want to leave here, you need to submit a request in advance. Generally, the request will be approved on the same day. Feng Heng quickly glanced at the identity card he had just received from Bakel. I am here to unlock the lock. How many points are needed for that? To unlock the highest level S tier exchange rights, you first need to accumulate 50 million contribution points. Afterward, you will need a total of 80 million contribution points to fully exchange. Once that's done, we will have someone to guide you through the process of breaking through, Bakel explained. Feng Heng's brows furrowed slightly. That's the general situation. Bakel introduced. Additionally, the supervisor here is Vina Duo. This person is not easy to get along with, but you probably won't see him much. Anyway, I owe you all a favor, so if you run into any trouble, feel free to come to me. As he spoke, the elevator doors opened. The elevator doors were directly facing the hall of Area A. In the center of the empty hall stood a tall, straight-backed officer from the Western District Federation. The officer appeared relatively young, with short, dark red hair and a sharp, cold gaze. Bakel nodded to the officer in greeting, then lowered his voice to quietly introduce him to Feng Heng and the others. That's Watson, the deputy supervisor of Area A. Currently, the Star Map Control Center is entirely managed by the military department. I don't have much say here, so I'll leave you with him. Thank you, officer. Saga thanked Bakel and followed Feng Heng and the others out of the elevator, heading toward Watson, who stood in the center of the hall. Mercenaries, welcome to the Western District Federation. The facilities, rules, and purpose of this place should have already been explained to you by Officer Bakel. Also, your rooms have been arranged. Watson's gaze swept over Feng Heng and the others, his expression cold. Inwardly, he was somewhat displeased. Someone recommended by the Senator's security team? Humphrey. The entire Star Map Control Center was directly managed by the military department. The Senator's reach was getting a bit too long. However, I believe you won't be needing that. You're not here for a vacation. Right now, there's an urgent mission that requires you mercenaries to handle it immediately. Watson said, turning and walking ahead. Follow me. You're a bit late. The new teams that joined the game finished their team formations 2 days ago. Right now, only the 4 of you can form a team. Once the first tier mission is completed, I'll arrange for you to be grouped with others for the next stage. He led them through the hall into the game hall. Area D. The hall was lined with game cabins. Unlike the outside world, each game cabin was connected to a thick black cable. Almost every game cabin had a military department assistant standing next to it, and about a third of the cabins were in operation. Let me briefly explain the mission commissioned to you, Watson said. As you can see, the game cabins in front of you have been specially modified by the Western District Federation. Once you enter the game, you will receive an invitation to be teleported into a special game world. Once you enter, you will automatically receive a mission commission. Completing the mission will grant you corresponding mission contribution points. These contribution points will be synced to your identity card, and you can use them to exchange for equivalent items here, Watson explained. He glanced over at Feng Heng and the others. It's worth noting that the mission commissions you will be undertaking are not easy. Be careful and proceed quickly. Zaka looked at his companions, his expression full of disbelief. Was it starting already? Good grief. Was the Western District Federation really this competitive? They just got here, didn't even get a chance to rest, and now they had to jump straight into the game to work. Hey, that's true. Since we're mercenaries, we should act like one, Zaka said with a self-deprecating smile, heading towards the game cabin. Su Guantong passed by an active game cabin, curiously glancing inside, and asked, who are these people? Yes, they're mercenaries just like you, invited here. They entered the game earlier than you and are already taking on commission missions, Watson explained, raising his hand to signal the staff to open the game cabin. Feng Heng observed the game cabin for a moment, then, Following the staff member's instructions, lay down inside the cabin. The hatch closed. Fang Heng's vision gradually descended into chaos. Hint: the player's current connection is being disturbed. Hint: the player has entered a special area. Hint: the player has accepted an invitation to an unknown world. If the player accepts the invitation, they will enter a special area, and this method of entering the area will prevent spatial teleportation. Hint: ensure that the player is in a movable space, or it may cause teleportation interference. Hint: preparing for teleportation. Chapter 2815, The Ship. Hint: the player has entered a special game world. Current world sequence level, high tier. Hint: the player's seed of Ouroboros level is level 2. The player is immune to the world's negative effects. Hint: in this environment, the player cannot use teleportation passages, scrolls, or skills. Fang Heng slowly opened his eyes. This place. A ship's cabin? He found himself inside a large metallic ship's cabin, surrounded by numerous armed guards. Soon, Saga and the others materialized beside him, entering the game world one after another. Welcome aboard the star map. The crowd looked toward the source of the voice, gazing at the elderly man with a white beard. The man appeared to be in his 70s but looked remarkably spirited. I am Captain Zoran. Zoran nodded at the group and said, this is your first time here. The mission commission will be provided to you in 5 minutes. You can prepare now, we will start soon. Also, all combat materials here are free to use. However, some explosive materials with limited supply will need to be purchased with credits. Since we are currently under continuous attack by external mutant worms, our ship's cabin opens every 2 hours. If you need to replenish supplies or return to rest, it's best to plan and get back to the bottom of the ship before the teleportation passage opens. Saga stood there, confused, scratching his head. A ship? Mutant worms? Supplies? Good grief, they had just arrived in this strange place and knew nothing about what was going on. How had they suddenly been pushed into a battlefield? Outsourced or not, this wasn't how things were supposed to go. Zoran frowned, noticing that the mercenary seemed a bit slow-witted, standing there without reacting. What are you still standing there for? The weapons to fight the mutant worms are over there. Are you planning to go barehanded against those creatures? Sorry, Captain. Saga pondered for a moment and asked, can you introduce the current situation to us first? What? You don't know what's going on here? Zoran grumbled, shaking his head in frustration. Damn it, how did Watson manage to send a bunch of complete rookies to me without any training? Zoran muttered a few words, shook his head, and helplessly said, all right, let me give you a brief description. Currently, our Western District Federation has reached a cooperation agreement with a high-tier special species in the game. We will assist them in dealing with a species called mutant worms in this special world. For some reason, the high-tier special race that entrusted us with this mission can't directly join the battlefield. So, think of us as mercenaries hired by that special race. We need to gain the upper hand through battles and earn more resources from that race. Does that make sense? Saga was feeling a bit confused at first, but after organizing his thoughts, he finally caught on. So, the Western District Federation was also a group of mercenaries? So they were like outsourced contractors for this operation? Was this some kind of nesting doll situation? Fang Heng thought for a moment, glanced around at the ship's environment, and then raised his head to ask, when you mention the special race, are you referring to the spawns? Oh? You've heard of the spawns? Zoran gave Fang Heng a surprised glance, then nodded and continued, that's classified. I'm not authorized to discuss it. However, according to the mission details, your goal is to complete as many tasks as possible to earn more contribution points. You can exchange them for more items when you return to the Western District Federation. As Zoran spoke, a game prompt appeared on Fang Heng's retina. Hint: the player has triggered a scenario mission Edge Wars, mission name, Edge Wars. Mission description: you have been recruited by an unknown force to become a mercenary. You are about to join a war between two races. You must complete missions on the battlefield to earn more mission points for your employers. Side mission: defeat the enemy. Mission description: defeat hostile species on the battlefield to gain more experience. Killing elites, leaders, etc. will grant extra experience. Side mission 2, Spirit Crystal. Mission description: the core point of this battlefield is a special crystal known as the Spirit Crystal. Players are tasked with collecting these crystals and transferring the valid Spirit Crystals to the ship. Side mission 3, Mining Search. Mission description: it is confirmed that there are Spirit Crystal deposits in this world. Players are tasked with exploring the world, searching for mining zones, and performing scans to confirm the discovery of deposits. Finding these crystals will yield additional contribution points. Side mission 4, Building Repair and Positioning Construction. Mission description: The ship is currently under attack by the mutant worms. The ship's defensive facilities and the star map barrier have been heavily damaged during several counterattacks. Elite engineering players are needed to repair the damaged sections. Side Mission 5, Mutant Gene Acquisition. Mission Description: by collecting the mutant worms' body genes and uploading them to the star map mainframe, the mainframe can develop targeted genetic weapons to destroy the mutant worm's body structure and inflict additional damage. However, obtaining mutant worms' body genes is difficult. Players must manually gather them. Elite, mutated, or commander-level mutant worms have a chance to drop gene samples. Side Mission 6, Energy Collection. Mission Description: this world is far from the main world. Due to attacks from the mutant worms, the energy network towers connecting to the main world have been affected. The ship is running low on energy reserves. Players are tasked with locating usable energy sources in this world and bringing them back to the ship. Fang Heng quickly glanced over the mission requirements. Without exception, all the tasks were mercenary missions focused on the battlefield against the mutant worm race. It didn't seem too difficult. Fang Heng lowered his head, deep in thought. When he raised it again, his brothers Zate and Zaka were already picking out weapons on the other side. All the weapons provided by the ship were custom-made, including combat protection suits, long-range beam weapons, tactical goggles, biological sample gatherers, and special spirit crystal map detection instruments. Due to the high energy weight-bearing capacity of the beam weapons, the backpack would suffer an additional weight penalty after carrying 3 energy units. This is the 6th generation beam weapon we developed specifically for the mutant worm creatures of this world. It is effective against most of them, Zoran said, looking at Fang Heng and his group, who were adjusting their weapons. He couldn't help but remind them, remember, these mutant worms have special abilities. If you newcomers aren't strong enough, it's best not to venture too deep. Understood. Also, the energy boards on your right are equipped with advanced energy gathering systems. Once activated, the boards can levitate, significantly increasing individual movement speed. Zoran pointed to a row of metal plates on the right side of the weapon racks and said, the downside is that they offer no defensive capabilities. If you're attacked, they will be destroyed, and they can't carry large materials. I suggest using them only when not in combat. Chapter 2816, Resources. Zaka took the metal plate in his hand and tested it, immediately showing a look of delight. Brothers, this thing seems pretty good. As he spoke, the ship's metallic barrier in front opened. It was then that Fang Heng realized that the ship they were on was currently hovering more than 80 meters above the ground. Looking out toward the ship's exterior, he could see a fierce battle raging in the distance. On the mountainside, there was a dense swarm of gray creatures. The creatures were fighting against a battalion of high-tier mechanical modifications. Damn, so many. Zaka froze as he saw the vast expanse of red mutated worm creatures spreading across the mountainside. The scene was extremely brutal. Both the mechanical bodies and mutated worms had no concept of injury, there was only death, fighting until the last breath. The entire battlefield was like a meat grinder, rapidly grinding down both sides' lives. There were just too many. In comparison, while the mechanical modification bodies were individually very strong, their numbers were clearly at a disadvantage. Endless waves of red mutated worm creatures emerged from the horizon, with no end in sight. Soon, the number of mechanical bodies couldn't keep up, and the battlefront began to rapidly shift toward the ship. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Hearing the sounds, Fang Heng turned his head to look beside the ship. Light spots appeared on the deck. Transition prisms. That's right. It was undoubtedly the spawns. A wave of newly emerged, large mechanical warriors from the transition prisms materialized on the ship's platform. Ka, ka, ka. The large mechanical warriors' shoulder structures shifted, revealing 2 energy cannons. Slowly, the cannon barrels were adjusted and aimed toward the direction where the mutant worm swarm was gathering in the distance. Boom. 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 Intense fire erupted from the barrels of the large mechanical bodies, unleashing a blanket of fire toward the distant swarm of mutant worms. After one round of fire, the mutant worm bodies suffered heavy casualties from the barrage. However, more mutant worms quickly emerged from the rear, continuing their relentless advance. So many. Fang Heng squinted and observed the mutant worm bodies closely. They resembled large ant-like creatures, each about half a meter long. Their nervous systems were concentrated within a thorax protected by a hard exoskeleton. The head was covered by a special fungal layer, and their 8 segmented limbs had mutated into jagged, bone-like structures. The number of mutant worms was enormous, and they moved at incredible speeds. You guys have probably seen enough. It's time to enter the real battlefield. Fang Heng turned toward the voice behind him. A series of blue teleportation pillars appeared next to the captain. At the same time, an artificially synthesized voice echoed through the ship. Mercenaries, the transition passage is now ready. Players who wish to participate in the next round of the commission battle should immediately enter the Pillar of Light and prepare for combat. We move. Feng Heng grabbed a crystal hoverboard and equipped it, nodding at his 3 companions. He quickly stepped into the nearest blue teleportation pillars surrounding them. Hint: the player has entered the transition passage. Please maintain a stable position and do not move. Hint: transition in progress. Countdown: 3, 2, 1, whoosh. Feng Heng's eyes were blinded by a flash of blue light. The next moment, Feng Heng found himself teleported to the bottom of the ship. Not far away, a player team hurriedly approached. They looked like they had just been through a fierce battle. Their clothes were dusty as they quickly ran toward him. They glanced at Feng Heng and his companions but didn't speak a word. They swiftly stepped into the blue pillar of light, transitioning back into the interior of the ship. Feng Heng looked up toward the top. At this moment, he realized that the ship's command post was even larger than he had anticipated. It also seemed that many players had gathered on the upper part of the ship. They were stationed at the ship's attack points, using the ship as cover to unleash powerful firepower at the distant mutant worm enemies. TCH, even though players are guarding the ship, hiding inside is way safer than going outside to do the dirty work, Saga complained, turning to his teammates. What do you guys think? Su Guantong looked down at the mapping device provided by the spawns, adjusted her glasses, and began analyzing. We just saw that a large number of mutant worms were gathering to the west. The majority of the ship's attacks are also coming from that direction. Therefore, the western region is extremely dangerous and unsuitable for exploration. Most players are currently exploring the eastern region. Players have already discovered several special spirit crystal or an energy ore points. The specific coordinates have been marked on the mapping device. Marked them? That's great. Saga said, happy to hear this. We can head over there to mine and complete the material transportation mission. Low risk, high reward. What are we waiting for? Zate, who had been quiet until now, looked down at the mapping device, shook his head, and said, the problem is, we joined the game too late. If the ore points have already been discovered, they've probably been claimed by other teams. If we go there now, we might run into conflict with them. Feng Heng also thought the same. If it were him, after finally finding an ore point, he definitely wouldn't want anyone coming to take a share. Conflict between the two sides was very likely. Right now, I think we have 3 choices. First, we could risk a conflict with other mercenaries and go for the resource points. Worst case, we just fight for it, and we rely on our strength to claim the resources. At this point, Zate glanced at Feng Heng intentionally, then paused for a moment before continuing. Secondly, you can choose to explore other regions, domains, and use your own abilities to find resource points. As for the third option, we could give up on resource hunting and try to find and kill scattered high-level mutant worm creatures. That would also earn us contribution points. Time was running short. Saga frowned and quickly analyzed, we're newcomers, and most of the other teams have probably already made some sort of agreement to stick together. If we try to grab the resource points now, it won't be easy. We might end up fighting several teams at the same time. Fighting the mutant worms directly is too dangerous. Let's take a middle path and go with the second option. The others looked at each other and then turned their gazes to Feng Heng. I have no problem with that. Su Guantong lowered her head to check the observation device in her hand and frowned. The mapping device shows that, aside from the western area, which is the main activity zone for the mutant worms, the other 3 directions, east and north, have been explored extensively. The south is less explored, so the probability of finding new resource points is higher there. Let's go south and have a look. Feng Heng nodded lightly, took out his energy crystal hoverboard, and stood on it. Whoosh! The hoverboard had an automatic balancing system, and once stabilized, it levitated into the air. Interesting. Feng Heng quickly figured out how to use the hoverboard and flew off in the direction of the south. The others exchanged glances and immediately followed, hopping onto their hoverboards to catch up. Chapter 2817, The Desert. Su Guantong secretly harbored some doubts in her heart. The 3 directions, the southern area had the least explored domain, which likely meant that there were enormous potential risks there. Feng Heng naturally realized this too, but his original intention was to avoid too much contact with other players to prevent unnecessary trouble. The group rode the energy crystal hoverboards towards the south, entering the withered tree forest in the southern region. The energy crystal hoverboards could hover at a height of half a meter, reaching a top speed of 120 km per hour. In extreme conditions, it could fly at a height of 1.5 meters to avoid obstacles. The group gradually picked up speed. Along the way, Feng Heng didn't see a single other player. It seemed that the other players were intentionally avoiding the southern area. Soon, the group quickly passed through a muddy area of withered trees in the south, and ahead, a desert region appeared. A desert? Su Guantong was the first to stop at the edge of the desert, retracting her hoverboard, then looked down at the map measuring device, saying, "Ahead, 2 kilometers into the desert, there's an unexplored unknown region. It might be dangerous, so everyone to stay alert." Feng Heng raised his head and glanced at the calm desert ahead. "There's something wrong with this desert." Saga hesitated, unwilling to proceed, stopping at the edge of the desert to carefully observe. The people present were all experienced players. With such a vast desert in front of them, there seemed to be no danger at first glance. Other player teams had no reason not to continue exploring. This meant there was some danger they couldn't discern. Feng Heng released his perception, sensing the area, but didn't detect any immediate threats. He frowned and said, "All right, you all stay here. I'll go check it out." "Hey, brother, you." Saga opened his mouth to try and persuade him, but when he thought about Feng Heng's abilities, the latter part of the sentence got stuck in his throat. In the blink of an eye, Feng Heng had activated his energy crystal hoverboard and entered the desert, and all Saga could see was his distant figure. The others exchanged looks. Su Guantong spoke up, "Let's wait and see. Based on how Feng Heng looks, he probably won't run into any trouble." "Yeah, probably." Not far away, Feng Heng had already traveled over 300 meters into the desert. Suddenly, he raised an eyebrow, jumped off the energy crystal hoverboard, and stowed it away in his backpack. There was something wrong. His perception hadn't picked up any enemies yet, but the faint fluctuation of lifeblood had already been detected by his god-level necromancy. The lifeblood fluctuation was coming from beneath his feet. Kai. 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 In the next instant, sharp, drill-like spikes shot up from beneath the sand beneath Feng Heng's feet. Feng Heng quickly leaped backward in advance. Upon closer inspection, the long, insect-like mutant worms that emerged from the sand had an ugly appearance, with their outward-facing esophagus covered in barbed, spiked mouth parts, quickly latching onto the ground as they made their way toward him. Hey! So it was a special creature hiding beneath the desert sands. It could even shield its presence from perception. This creature had some skill. Feng Heng was the first to arrive. The alloy metal rod in his hand slashed forward with great effort, letting out a sound of breaking through the air. Bang! With a loud explosion, the head of the mutant worm creature was instantly blown apart, and its flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The remaining half of its body that was stuck in the sand quickly flowed into the sand. Hint: the player has killed the burrowing sand locust. Hint: the player has earned 48 war contribution points. Whoosh! 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 Feng Heng heard the rustling sounds around him, a hint of amusement flashing in his eyes. Not good. Feng Heng. Get back here. At the edge of the desert behind, Saga and the others were immediately alarmed upon seeing Feng Heng's situation. Around Feng Heng, the sand was rapidly shifting, as if a massive swarm of burrowing locusts was quickly moving towards his position beneath the sand. This was bad. Feng Heng. Run. It was already troublesome enough to be ambushed by creatures hiding in the desert, but now there were so many of them. However, Feng Heng did not move, standing still as if stunned by the situation. Su Guantong stared at Feng Heng closely. She had a feeling. Feng Heng definitely had the ability to handle the current crisis. Hey, interesting. In the desert, Feng Heng muttered to himself, quickly forming a seal in front of him with his hands. Merge. As soon as the words were spoken, a large number of burrowing sand locusts burst from the ground, snarling as they lunged toward Feng Heng. Su Guantong kept her eyes fixed on Feng Heng's actions. When she saw the imprint condensing in front of him, her eyebrows lifted. Bang! An intensely blood-churning aura mixed with a scent of death exploded outwards from Feng Heng, sending a ripple through the air in all directions. Bang! Bang bang! Bang bang bang! The burrowing sand locusts that had emerged from beneath the desert were struck head-on by the red ripple, instantly shattering without pause into splashes of blood. That was. Saga and the others watched in shock as the burrowing sand locusts that were attacking Feng Heng instantly exploded, their eyes filled with awe. The visual impact was too strong. Previously, on the train, they only knew that Feng Heng had single-handedly taken care of the spider life form. They did not know how Feng Heng had done it. They did not expect Feng Heng's strength to be much more terrifying than they had expected. With just one move, he could instantly kill all the alien insect creatures in an area of effect. Bro, it's not over. What? Saga raised an eyebrow. The flesh and blood that exploded in the air after the alien insect body died in the air, and then condensed into blood spikes in the air at an extremely fast speed. There were hundreds of them. Kai. Kai Kai. In an instant, hundreds of blood spikes stabbed into the surrounding sand almost at the same time, making a series of popping sounds under the sand. The sand around Feng Heng's feet fell silent again. Seconds later, crimson blood slowly began to emerge from the sandy ground. Saga watched this scene in the distance, nervously swallowing. Although he couldn't see what was happening beneath the sand, he could feel it. Something buried under the sand, the burrowing sand locust, had been thoroughly pierced by sharp lifeblood spikes. Hint: the player has killed burrowing sand locust. Hint: the player has gained 46 war contribution points. Hint: the player has killed burrowing sand locust. Hint: the player has gained 48 war contribution points. A barrage of kill notifications flashed across Fang Heng's retinal display. Huh? Here comes the big one. Fang Heng muttered softly, then raised his head and looked into the distance. Hundreds of meters away, an obvious bulge appeared in the desert sand, forming a dune about half a meter high. The dune was rapidly approaching his position. Saga and the others noticed the moving dune and immediately tensed up. This was bad. Given the large size and the pressure it exuded, it was most likely a commander-level monster. Fang Heng. Be careful. It's a commander-level monster. As the dune drew closer, the surrounding sand around Fang Heng began to shift again, moving like waves in the sea. Although it wasn't visible, everyone could sense that thousands, even tens of thousands, of burrowing sand locusts were gathering beneath the sand, heading straight toward Fang Heng. This situation was dire. Zate's forehead broke out in cold sweat. He gripped his beam weapon tightly and couldn't help but take a small step back. Chapter 2818. The effect. The strength difference between commander-level creatures and normal creatures was vast. As the sand dunes quickly approached, they could already sense the aura ripples emanating from the leader monster. Su Guantong fixed her gaze on Fang Heng. Vampires. She could tell that the power Fang Heng had just used was blood-based strength. The power came from the vampire bloodline. This guy was a vampire. And not just any vampire, he was a high-tier vampire. Could he be a Marquis-level vampire player? Whoosh! Su Guantong's eyelids twitched slightly. Just as she was pondering, Fang Heng suddenly raised his right hand, directly aiming at the dune that was rapidly closing in on him. Kai. The blood that seeped out from the sand around Fang Heng's feet slowly formed beads of blood, slowly floating in the air, and gradually accelerated to gather in Fang Heng's palm. In the blink of an eye, countless tiny blood beads rapidly formed into a blood-red longsword in front of Fang Heng. White smoke continuously rose from the blood-red longsword, and its impurities were quickly refined. Whoosh! 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 A large number of blood beads crazily gathered toward the blood-red longsword, yet the sword's size remained condensed, barely reaching 2 meters in length. Boom! In the desert, the moving small dune came to a halt less than half a meter in front of Fang Heng, exploding with a loud boom. From beneath the sand, a massive mutant worm's mandible emerged, exuding an unbearably foul stench as it lunged toward Fang Heng. Fang Heng's gaze was cold and sharp as he stared at the giant burrowing sand locust leader, which was nearly within arm's reach. His right hand gently moved forward. Kai. The sharp, blood-red longsword instantly slashed forward, emitting a faint sound. Not far away, Su Guantong's eyes widened in utter surprise. What? The blood-red longsword sliced through the head of the giant burrowing sand locust leader as easily as cutting tofu. The giant burrowing sand locust leader froze, and a line of blood appeared on its neck. Kai. The blood that flowed out of the burrowing sand locust leader's neck quickly spread out from the wound, spreading over its body like a neural network, firmly controlling it in place. Boom! The burrowing sand locust leader exploded in front of Fang Heng's eyes, bursting into pieces of flesh and blood. It wasn't over yet. The blood-red longsword in front of Fang Heng also exploded after the slash, forming smaller short blades in the air. Kai. Countless short blades surged through the air, stabbing into the surrounding sand that moved like crashing waves. Instantly, the sand waves stopped surging. Bright red blood continued to seep out from under the sand, condensing into tiny blood spikes that pierced into the ground and circulated back and forth. Not far away, at the edge of the desert, Saga watched the scene in front of him, a deep sense of wariness emerging in his eyes. Terrifying. Who exactly was Fang Heng? A commander-level monster would be strong enough, right? Yet it was still instantly killed by Fang Heng with a single move. In just a few seconds, the sand swirling around Fang Heng had turned into a sea of red. Looks like Fang Heng must be a vampire. Zate was equally shaken by what he had just witnessed. He took a deep breath, looking at Fang Heng, his eyes filled with admiration. I've heard that vampires with their bloodline abilities are terrifyingly powerful, but after seeing it today, I think we may have seriously underestimated them. Su Guantong carefully observed Fang Heng, standing amidst the sea of blood-red sand, her expression silent. Vampires. His name was Fang Heng. After cross-referencing his appearance and body size across multiple dimensions, Su Guantong ran several rounds of comparisons in the Eastern Federation database, but there was still no match. Where did he come from? Saga clicked his tongue and whispered, He must not be a normal vampire, right? I've heard that high-level vampires have the embracing ability. Do you think we could ask him for help? Maybe he could convert us into vampires too? Forget it. It's not possible. Zaid shook his head. I asked one of my friends. Ever since the vampire's abilities increased significantly the second time, the high-ranking vampires have been actively controlling the spread of their bloodline. If they spread it privately, they're hunted by Duke-level vampires, and they'd lose the extra bloodline strength. No way, that strict? Zaka shrunk his neck and immediately discarded the idea. If they were just normal vampires, there might still be a chance of survival even if they were hunted by Duke-level vampires. But if they lost the enhanced strength from the bloodline, it would all be in vain. As the burrowing sand locust leader perished, the remaining burrowing sand locusts hidden beneath the sand went berserk, continuously gathering towards Fang Heng, only to be killed by the rapidly generated blood blades, turning into Fang Heng's war contribution points. Hint: the player has killed burrowing sand locust leader. Hint: the player has earned 50,000 war contribution points. Hint: the player has acquired a biological sample from the burrowing sand locust. The player has earned 44,000 war contribution points. Hint: the player has killed a burrowing sand locust. Hint: the player has earned 43 war contribution points. Fang Heng wasn't in a hurry. He decided to leave the game running for a while, his eyes scanning through the layers of game hints that were constantly popping up. What was this? Fang Heng suddenly noticed a special hint flashing in the dense stream of game notifications. Before he could fully read the information, it had already been pushed down by several pages of updates, so he quickly opened the game log to check. Hint: the player has discovered a special modifiable homologous organism while collecting samples. Hint: the player's current talent seed of Ouroboros, level 2, has an additional evolution option. Hint: current simulated evolution trigger burrowing sand locust, modifiable option, stealth, normal zombie, liquor modified zombie. Description: the corrosive slime secreted by the modified zombie's mouthpiece allows it to soften rock and soil layers in an instant. The zombie's limbs are transformed into spiral-shaped scales more suitable for digging. The mimic core allows the creature to blend with its environment underground, significantly reducing the probability of being detected. In the subterfuge state, the digging speed is influenced by the digging environment and the creature's attributes. Good stuff. Fang Heng's eyes lit up. Stealth. This was much better than the melee physical retaliation and acidic bodily fluid modifications that Kaiyu Yokang had provided before. Imagine if his zombie clones and lickers could burrow underground like the burrowing sand locusts, waiting until the right moment to burst out and engage in combat. It would be incredible. Fang Heng immediately thought of over 10 potential combat strategies. Hint: the Player's Research Institute has unlocked this modification project. After research, it can be executed at the Institute. Hint: the player's current skill seed of Ouroboros, level 2, also allows gathering of gene samples, and consuming King of Gods points, 500,000, directly to obtain this modification project and solidify the modification. Oh? He could use the points left to do direct research? Fang Heng carefully studied the game hint. Previously, modifications to zombie clones had to be done slowly through Kaiyu Yokang, spending King of Gods points over time. But now, it could be done directly? The seed of Ouroboros had this kind of advantage too? Chapter 2819, Hiding. Fang Heng carefully examined and roughly understood the skill effect. The seed of Ouroboros provided a more convenient transformation method, but it also increased the consumption of King of Gods points. Fortunately, he still had over 30 million King of Gods points left. Permanently solidifying a zombie clone with a burrowing transformation effect only cost 2,000 King of Gods points. It was enough to modify a whole batch. Since he happened to have some time, he decided to modify 2 first to test the effect. Hint: the player has chosen to use King of Gods points in exchange for a research transformation option. Please gather enough genetic samples. Current skill, stealth, genetic collection rate, 32%, huh? He needed to gather enough genetic samples first? Fang Heng glanced around. Coincidentally, as the desert continuously sent wave after wave of burrowing sand locusts to their deaths, his stealth skill's genetic collection rate was increasing rapidly. Hint: current skill, stealth, genetic collection rate, 39%, so, killing burrowing sand locusts of any level could contribute to stealth gene collection. Easy. With that, there was nothing to worry about. He let the game auto-farm for a while longer. Fang Heng watched the progress bar slowly rise and waited patiently. At the edge of the desert, Zaka and the others silently observed as countless burrowing sand locusts swarmed toward Fang Heng in waves, only to be effortlessly cut down by his controlled blood blades. 5 minutes passed. Hint: current skill, stealth, genetic collection rate, 100%. The player has completed the genetic collection and has now unlocked the stealth creature transformation option. It was done. Feng Heng stretched his shoulders, removed 2 rune papers from his backpack, and threw them forward with force. Kai. Kai. 2 liquors sprang out from the exploding rune papers. The liquors moved swiftly. As soon as they landed on the sand, they immediately condensed into 2 flesh cocoons. Hint: the player has consumed 1000 King of Gods points. The 2 liquors are undergoing the stealth enhancement transformation. The flesh cocoons pulsed rhythmically. 5 minutes later, another game hint appeared. Hint: transformation complete. The player has additionally consumed 3000 King of Gods points. The 2 liquors have permanently acquired a stealth ability transformation, Kai. The 2 liquors tore through the flesh cocoons, crawling out from the broken shells and crouching in front of Feng Heng. Compared to before, their appearance had changed significantly. Originally, the liquor's skin was rotten to the point that parts of their muscle fibers were exposed. But now, after the transformation, their bodies were covered in a layer of sand-like spiked skin. Some mucus from the flesh cocoon still clung to their surfaces. Additionally, upon closer inspection, their forelimbs had undergone an abnormal change, now covered in spiral-shaped serrated scales. Time to test the results. Feng Heng gestured toward the 2 liquors with a slight nod. Go. Kai. The 2 modified liquors swiftly burrowed into the sand and disappeared from sight. Interesting. Their digging efficiency was significantly faster than before. Although he couldn't see them, Feng Heng could sense that once underground, the liquor's movement speed was barely affected compared to being on the surface. Perhaps because the terrain was sandy, it was more suitable for underground infiltration. If it were regular rocky soil, the effectiveness probably wouldn't be as good. Now, time to test their combat strength. Feng Heng issued the hunting command to the liquors. The modified liquors had perfectly retained all their previous abilities and swiftly located the burrowing sand locusts beneath the sand before launching their attack. Burrowing sand locusts were adept at ambushing from underground, but against liquors with the same stealth ability, they had no advantage whatsoever. Their attributes were overwhelmingly suppressed, and they were torn apart almost instantly. A game hint quickly appeared on Feng Heng's retinal display. Hint: the player's zombie clone, liquor transformed body, has killed a burrowing sand locust. Hint: the player has gained 46 war contribution points, a great skill. Feng Heng silently praised it, then casually pulled out a thick stack of rune papers from his backpack and scattered them forward. Pa. 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 The rune papers burst into the air in rapid succession. Over 200 liquors sprang out from the shattered runes, landing and quickly forming into evolving flesh cocoons. In the distance, at the edge of the desert, Saga and the others watched Feng Heng's actions with increasingly perplexed expressions. What was Feng Heng doing? Since they were too far away, they couldn't see his actions. But suddenly, they noticed circles of insect-like cocoons appearing around him, and an ominous premonition rose in their hearts. You guys see that? What are those things? When did they appear? No idea. Zate shook his head, his eyes filled with deep suspicion. 5 minutes later, the modified liquors broke out of their cocoons. Following Feng Heng's instructions, they swiftly burrowed into the depths of the sand, actively hunting down the surrounding burrowing sand locusts. Done. Feng Heng clapped his hands and began heading back. After nearly 20 minutes of grinding, a significant portion of the burrowing sand locusts in the desert region had been cleared. From here on, he could let the liquors continue grinding passively in the desert. At the desert's edge, Saga and his brother watched Feng Heng return with an expression that could only be described as strange, as if they were looking at an alien. Feng Heng. Are you okay? I'm fine. No big deal. Zaka's expression stiffened. Was it really not a big deal? He glanced again at the cocoons behind Feng Heng and cautiously asked, those cocoon-like things just now, what are they? Are they also mutant worm creatures? They're not mutant worms. They're my special summons. Feng Heng quickly brushed off the tropic and continued, there are indeed a lot of burrowing sand locusts hidden beneath the desert. It's troublesome, but their strength is lacking. I've already cleared out a portion, so it should be safe now. We should move out. Huh? Move out? Zaka was stunned. The number of mutant worm creatures was terrifying. Just moments ago, they had been swarming in like tidal waves, with no sign of stopping. And now, it was suddenly safe? They were leaving already? Suguantong and Zate also looked puzzled. Don't worry, I have a plan. Let's start moving. Keep the pace slow, and there won't be any issues. Just follow me. As he spoke, Feng Heng stepped onto his energy crystal hoverboard once again. Suguantong and Zate exchanged glances. Perhaps Feng Heng's performance just now had convinced them. After a brief hesitation, they also stepped onto their hoverboards and followed him. Alright then. Zaka hesitated for a moment. Seeing that Sugwantong and Zaid had already followed, he took a deep breath and controlled his energy crystal hoverboard to follow as well. Soon, as they followed Feng Heng deeper into the desert, Zaka started to realize that something was off. Chapter 2820, Gathering Feng Heng, over there. In the distance, on the right side, the sand began to stir abnormally again. Like waves in the ocean, the sand formed a tide, surging rapidly toward them. Damn it! Zaka cursed under his breath, feeling a chill run faintly down his spine. Judging by the size of those waves, he estimated that at least several thousand mutant worm creatures were lurking beneath the sand. Hey, Feng Heng, do you see that? As the sand tide closed in, Zaka's expression darkened slightly, and he tightened his grip on the energy beam gun. We're screwed. Within the tide, there were even a few small but distinct moving dunes. High-tier mutated burrowing sand locusts. Zaka's face turned pale, his heartbeat pounding faster and faster. Relax, it's fine, Feng Heng said calmly, completely unfazed, as he controlled the energy crystal hoverboard beneath his feet, maintaining a steady pace forward. Are you sure it's fine? Don't let your guard down, we could crash any second. Seeing the swarm of underground mutant worms rapidly gathering toward them, Zaka was genuinely panicking. 100 meters. 80 meters. 50 meters. Sugwantong's expression grew heavy too, and was ready to act at any moment. 30 meters left. Zaka was extremely tense, gripping his guns tightly and preparing to fire preemptively. But in the very next second, the small dunes racing toward them suddenly settled and calmed. Huh? What just happened? Did they stop chasing? Zaka froze in shock. Then, all of a sudden, he realized that all the sand tides chasing after them had started to slow down about 30 meters away and completely stopped advancing. Not a single grain of sand got within 20 meters of them. What the hell? What was going on? Zaka immediately turned his head to look at Feng Heng, eyes filled with confusion. It even felt eerie. It was as if Feng Heng had activated some kind of mysterious domain, instantly killing any burrowing sand locust that entered its range. Sugwantong also noticed it. His gaze toward Feng Heng was now filled with deep suspicion. How did he do that? Was it some kind of domain-type ability? And what about that strange flesh cocoon from earlier? Could it be a special summoning skill? But the strangest thing of all, why couldn't they find any trace of this guy's identity in the Federation's database? Feng Heng remained calm, unfazed. Just basic operations. It wasn't a domain ability at all. It was because he had sent over 200 lickers into the sand layer beneath them, patrolling nearby. Any mutant worm creature that entered the 30-meter range was silently slaughtered by the lickers. From the surface, it looked exactly like a strange domain skill was forcing all the burrowing sand locusts to halt. Even Zaka and the others, being so close to Feng Heng, were treated by the game as part of his team, earning them a few stray contribution points. Hint: your teammate has killed a burrowing sand locust. Hint: you have gained 1 battlefield contribution point. Zate raised an eyebrow at the notifications. Burrowing sand locusts. Hint: your teammate has killed a burrowing sand locust. Zate raised an eyebrow at the notifications. Burrowing sand locusts. A special mutant worm creature. Sure, each one only gave 1 to 2 contribution points, but there were so many of them. Soon, the game notifications were flooding their vision. Zaka was overjoyed. No way? Holy crap, this was insane luck. They had latched onto a big shot. Zaka immediately beamed with delight and turned to Feng Heng, eyes sparkling with excitement. Big Brother was incredible. These were free contribution points. No way he was letting go of this golden opportunity now. Even if he died, he was clinging to this leg for dear life. Feng Heng paid no attention to the looks from Zaka and the others. He calmly controlled the energy crystal hoverboard beneath his feet and maintained a steady pace forward. This speed was just right. If they went any faster, the lickers wouldn't be able to keep up with the kill rate, which might cause trouble. In the meantime, Feng Heng had already ordered a portion of the lickers to self-destruct. They would be able to respawn in about 2 hours. By then, even more lickers could join the battle, further speeding up the monster farming. Feng Heng, there's an energy ripple over there. Feng Heng snapped out of his thoughts and turned to look at Sugwantong. Sugwantong checked the spawn's mapping device and pointed toward the right, saying, the map shows a special ripple about 5 kilometers out to the east, in the outer region. It could be a spirit crystal vein or an energy ore vein. I recommend we move in for a closer look. Alright. Without wasting any more time, Feng Heng adjusted the energy crystal hoverboard and veered toward the right. After traveling about 5 more kilometers, a patch of green forest appeared in the center of the desert. A forest? At first glance, it didn't seem too large, surrounded by the desert's vast sands. Feng Heng stepped off the hoverboard and stood at the edge of the forest. Hint: the player has discovered an area with energy ripple activity. Please remain within the domain until the ripple scan is complete. Hint: current scan progress, 0.01%. Hint: the player may attempt to move closer to the ripple source to accelerate the scan. Su Guantong and the others also received the game notification. They got off their hoverboards and exchanged glances. A forest in the middle of a desert. Kinda creepy. Zaka muttered, eyeing the patch of trees. Should we go in and check it out? Everyone instinctively turned to Feng Heng. At some point, though unspoken, Feng Heng had become the leader of the group. Not yet. Feng Heng stood still at the edge of the forest, expanding his perception. Through his lifeblood sensing, he had already detected the mutant worm creatures hidden inside the woods. Judging by their lifeblood signatures, the individual strength of these worms wasn't particularly high. In fact, they seemed even weaker than the burrowing sand locusts from earlier. There are mutant worms inside, and lots of them. Zaka's face immediately grew tense as he, along with the others, raised their gun and aimed at the forest. Everyone fall back a bit. I'll try to lure some of them out. Su Guantong and the others didn't hesitate and quickly retreated to the desert's edge. Feng Heng took a step forward and pulled an energy grenade from his backpack, tossing it into the forest. 3 seconds later. Boom. The energy grenade exploded deep within the woods. Buzz. A buzzing sound began to rise. Feng Heng frowned. Mosquitoes? Triggered by the grenade's blast, a massive swarm of mutated mosquitoes stirred to life, buzzing furiously as they swarmed out of the forest straight toward Feng Heng. Shit. Zaka couldn't help but curse, feeling a chill in his gut as he quickly pulled the trigger. The mosquito-like creatures were about the size of bees, swarming together in a dense black mass. There were so many that there was barely any need to aim. Just firing the energy beam weapons directly into the swarm was enough. Whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. The light beams tore through the swarm, picking off a few mosquitoes each time. But against the massive, overwhelming black cloud, it barely made a dent. Chapter 2821, Mining Site. Damn it. Who could handle this? Zaka was already breaking out in a cold sweat, ready to consider retreating. He felt like their luck on this mission was terrible. Every mutant worm they encountered had some sort of deadly trick, and none of them were easy to deal with. Fall back. Feng Heng shouted, stepping forward toward the surging swarm of mutant worms. With a surge of mental power, he instantly unleashed the force of his lifeblood in a powerful burst. What? Before Zaka and the others' astonished eyes, the dense swarm of mutated insects rushing toward Feng Heng suddenly froze midair, then exploded one after another into clouds of blood mist. A lifeblood ripple. It was the same technique Feng Heng had used on the disaster creatures back in the Death Realm. If it worked on higher-level disaster creatures, these normal mutant worms were nothing to him. Su Guantong was truly stunned by the scene in front of her. Feng Heng's mastery over blood was far beyond what she had anticipated. He had definitely surpassed the Marquis-level vampire players. His strength already placed him among the top-tier players in the entire game. If it had been any other player entering this forest, the outcome would have been disastrous. But Feng Heng had effortlessly wiped out the entire mutant swarm. Who exactly was he? No one from the Federation's registry matched him. Everyone had their traceable growth path. Such a powerhouse couldn't appear without leaving any record. Unless... Su Guantong turned her head slightly, staring at Feng Heng's profile. Unless his face, name, and identity were all a disguise. In the blink of an eye, the swarms of mosquitoes flooding out of the forest were obliterated by the power of his lifeblood, and the surroundings gradually fell silent. The shattered flesh and blood of the mutant worms quickly evaporated in midair, condensing into tiny blood beads that gathered in front of Feng Heng and slowly formed a floating mass of blood hovering in the air. Feng Heng raised his right hand high above his head. Guided by his will, the blood mass floated higher, eventually hovering more than 3 meters above him. Blood explosion. Feng Heng shouted softly, then forcefully swung his raised right hand forward. Almost instantly, dense streams of tiny blood beads shot out from the blood mass hovering above Feng Heng's head. Like a hail of bullets from a machine gun, each blood bead continuously fired deep into the dense forest ahead. Boom. Boom. Boom 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 boom. Explosions erupted non-stop within the forest. Every blood bead that struck its target triggered a violent lifeblood detonation. At the same time, tremors shook the ground beneath their feet. Zaka's face paled slightly as he watched the forest ahead engulfed in lifeblood explosions. Damn. These explosions were terrifying. Maybe, compared to the mutant worm swarms, Feng Heng was the real nightmare here? Boom. Boom boom. Boom. The bombardment lasted for a full minute before gradually dying down. Zaka glanced cautiously at Feng Heng beside him, parting his lips as if to say something. Bzzz. The buzzing sound returned to their ears. Turning their heads toward the forest ahead, They saw that the explosions had disturbed the entire swarm of mutant mosquitoes hidden within. Like a black cloud blotting out the sky, the swarm surged toward Feng Heng once more. You've got to be kidding. Still not done? Saga clicked his tongue. The sheer number of mutant worms was horrifying. Thank goodness they had a powerhouse like Feng Heng on the team, otherwise, even if they found the ore veins, they wouldn't have been able to collect them. Feng Heng stood his ground, raising his head to coldly watch the approaching swarm. Bang! Bang bang bang! As the swarming mutant mosquitoes entered the range of Feng Heng's blood ripple control, they began to self-detonate one after another, transforming once more into patches of blood. Behind him, Su Guantong silently observed Feng Heng. Age, build, skill mastery, vampire bloodline, power level, and the biggest coincidence, the name. Suddenly, a chilling thought rose in her heart. Could it be? Could this guy actually be Feng Heng himself? A bold choice. Disguising his face but using the same name. Was it to exploit a psychological blind spot? Or did he simply not care if his identity was exposed? Or was he so confident that no one would uncover his secret? Su Guantong stared at Feng Heng's profile, her suspicions reaching their peak. Her instincts screamed at her. This man in front of her, he was Feng Heng. The world lord of both the vampire apocalypse and zombie apocalypse. Meanwhile, Feng Heng remained unaware that Su Guantong had already seen through his identity. He focused all his attention on detonating the mutant worms with his lifeblood ripple, condensing their blood into lifeblood bombs and hurling them deeper into the forest, attempting to lure even more mutant worm swarms out. And so, this process repeated several times. Until the final wave, the number of mutant mosquito bodies lured out by the explosions had dropped to less than a tenth of the first wave. That should be enough, Feng Heng said as he cleared out the last wave of mutant worms with his lifeblood power. He turned to Saga and the others. Let's go. Time to check inside the forest. Yeah. Saga and the others exchanged cautious glances before following Feng Heng deeper into the forest. As they proceeded, a few remaining mutant worms continued to gather, but without exception, every one of them exploded midair into blooming bursts of lifeblood the moment they got close. Soon, Su Guantong, guided by the mapping device, arrived at a certain location in the forest and came to a stop. Hint, your team has discovered a spirit crystal or vein. Hint, you have gained 500,000 battlefield contribution points, we found it. The team lit up with excitement upon seeing the game prompt. Just by following Feng Heng earlier and clearing out a wave, even though they hadn't done much, they had already racked up over 300,000 contribution points. Now, another 500,000 had been added. They were already closing in on 1,000,000 points. And how long had they even been in this game? The best part was, they hadn't faced any real danger. All that remained was to mine a batch of spirit crystals and bring them back to the ship, which would net them an even larger haul of contribution points. Saga could hardly contain his excitement just thinking about it. Following the game's prompt, the group ventured deeper into the dense forest, eventually arriving at the marked location in the heart of the woods. But where's the ore? Saga turned around and saw Zate glancing around in confusion. Right, where was the spirit crystal mine they were promised? Feng Heng also surveyed the surroundings. They were now standing in the central region of the forest. Massive stone pillars towered around them, overgrown with climbing vine creatures. Scattered across the ground were numerous toppled stone pillars, lying in disarray. The damage on these shattered pillars didn't seem fresh, it wasn't caused by the recent lifeblood explosions but rather by destruction from long ago. I think these might be the spirit crystals we're looking for, Su Guantong said, crouching next to one of the fallen giant stone pillars while holding the mapping device. She pointed to the embedded blue crystalline decorations on the pillar. Saga blinked, then looked down at the ruins of the Tier 1 stone pillar by his feet. Huh? You mean those decorations on the pillars? Chapter 2822, Tempering. Feng Heng also noticed the gemstones on the stone pillar. He squatted down and tried to pry off a small piece from the top. Hint, the player has found an item: polished spirit gemstone fragment. Item, polished spirit gemstone fragment. Level, D. Description, the player lacks the relevant skill to obtain information about this item. Hint, the player has basic psychic studies ability and can use the spirit gemstone to nurture their psychic abilities, gaining psychic-related experience points. Hint, this item can be used as part of a mission: collect spirit crystals. It can also be submitted for additional battlefield contribution. Psychic. Feng Heng was surprised. So this was the spirit gemstone. This wasn't Feng Heng's first time finding a spirit gemstone. The last time he obtained one was after killing some spawns. He hadn't expected that the spirit crystal they were searching for this time and a spirit gemstone were essentially the same thing. The spirit gemstone was finely polished from the spirit crystal. In that case, Feng Heng couldn't help but think to himself, Wouldn't it be a loss to just hand over the gemstone to the spawns? Since they had already found the vein, why not use it for himself first? With this thought, Feng Heng held the gemstone in his hand and began to pour his psychic strength into it. Buzz. As his mental strength flowed, a surge of psychic power gradually poured out of the spirit gemstone, flowing along Feng Heng's consciousness and eventually being absorbed into his sea of consciousness. At this moment, Saga and the others watched Feng Heng's actions with surprise. They saw Feng Heng holding the gemstone with one hand and closing his eyes. The gemstone gradually lost its luster and, with visible speed, turned grayish-white. Eventually, the gray-white stone was covered in cracks, and with a bang, it exploded into dust. Noticing that the spirit gemstone could no longer provide more power, Feng Heng slowly opened his eyes. Hint: the player has absorbed the spirit gemstone's power. Hint: the player's current mid-tier psychic level has reached the maximum level. No more experience points can be gained. Please try to advance your psychic abilities. Hint: the player has triggered a mission high-tier psychic advancement. Mission name: high-tier psychic advancement. Mission description: while seeking to improve your psychic abilities, you accidentally discovered a special gemstone. This gemstone can purify your sea of consciousness and enhance your psychic strength. You may be able to use the gemstone's power to elevate your psychic tier. Mission requirements: collect and absorb 10 high-tier spirit gemstones, S-rated, and enter the psychic storm state to attempt to understand your psychic ability. If you fail, you will need to consume more gemstones to try again. High-tier academic advancement mission. The mission requires gathering 10 S-level spirit gemstones. Feng Heng thought for a moment and then looked up, noticing that Saga and the others were staring at him. It's nothing. Feng Heng released the spirit gemstone that had turned into fragments and explained, I've studied psychic abilities. The power of these gemstones can be absorbed by psychic powers. Ha! Saga sighed in relief and said, you scared me there. I thought there was something wrong with the crystal. Anyway, now that we've confirmed the mission target, let's gather the surrounding gemstones and see what we can find. Yeah, sounds good. The group immediately began collecting the spirit gemstones embedded in the stone pillars scattered around. In less than half an hour, they had thoroughly searched the area around the stone pillars. The group gathered together once again. Feng Heng asked, have you guys found any high-level gemstones? The others looked at each other, and Su Guantong took out an A-level gemstone. Most of the ones I've found are between E to C level, but this A-level is the highest I've got. Same here, but the best I found is only a B-level gemstone. Zate nodded and said, I found an A-level one. Feng Heng nodded lightly. Most of the spirit gemstones embedded in the stone pillars were of average quality, with the highest being A-level. They couldn't be used as materials for skill advancement. Su Guantong asked, Feng Heng, are you looking for high-tier spirit gemstones? Yes, the related psychic mission requires them. The gemstones need to be at least S-level, and the ones we have now are useless. Su Guantong pursed her lips and said, I remember checking the exchange column when we entered the game. There are special skill books for exchange, including one for refining spirit gemstones. Feng Heng's eyes lit up. Right. The Spawn's contribution points exchange system. When they first entered the ship, the group had been looking at the equipment, while Su Guantong had been researching the contribution exchange items on her own. Is there an exchange on the ship? Yes, I'm sure. The gemstone refining technique can be exchanged for battlefield contribution points. There are also psychic control, advancement books, and mechanical devices for exchange, but these all have exchange limits. Do you remember the exchange price for the refining technique? Su Guantong thought for a moment, then nodded and said, the gemstone refining technique costs 2 million contribution points. To learn the skill, you need to have basic or intermediate psychic or alchemy skills as prerequisites. Mid-tier psychic advancement costs 5 million contribution points, high-tier costs 15 million, master level is 100 million, and grandmaster level is 5 billion. There are no higher-tier skill books available for exchange. Damn. Saga couldn't help but complain when he heard the high prices. Mid-tier advancement book costs 5 million? That's so expensive. I think the Federation's exchange system is pointless. Who has that many contribution points to trade? Feng Heng quickly checked his character panel. Currently, his personal battlefield contribution points reached 6.22 million. He already met the requirement for the gemstone refining technique. Moreover, the spirit gemstones they had just collected could also be exchanged for a significant amount of contribution points. With time, more than 200 modified liquor bodies infiltrating the desert's underground were continuously hunting burrowing sand locusts, steadily providing him with more contribution points. The dilemma now was whether the spawns offered a direct skill exchange for upgrades, which might make learning the gemstone refining technique unnecessary. How should he choose for the greatest benefit? Zate saw Fang Heng lost in thought and couldn't help asking, Fang Heng, how about we go back and exchange for the skill book? Not in a hurry, let's wait a bit. Fang Heng nodded lightly, then looked down at the mapping device, nodding again. Did you notice? The gemstones we've collected from the stone pillars are all accounted for, but the device still shows there's a large amount of spirit crystal residue. But we've already searched thoroughly around here, and the stone pillars have all been stripped clean. We didn't find any ore. As Saga was speaking, he suddenly realized something, raised an eyebrow, and said, Are you suggesting the ore is underground? Chapter 2823, Digging. To be precise, the mapping device has a low probability of malfunction. I think there should be a spirit crystal mine underground. We'll know once we try. Su Guantong, standing nearby, reached out her hand, and a multifunctional engineer shovel appeared in her grasp. She began to dig down at the spot. Alright, I'll help too, Zaka responded, and he and Zate immediately started digging as well. Fang Heng stepped aside and, with a flick of his wrist, 2 rune papers appeared in his hands. Whoosh! Whoosh! The rune papers were thrown into the air, and they exploded at the same time. 2 liquors leapt out of the explosion, landing and quickly condensing into 2 flesh cocoons. Kai Kai. The flesh cocoons pulsed rhythmically. Su Guantong turned her head and saw Fang Heng controlling the liquors. Her pupils suddenly contracted. The liquor. Earlier in the desert, she hadn't been able to see the liquor clearly due to the distance, but now, with Fang Heng summoning creatures right before them, she could see clearly. It was indeed a liquor. The creature Fang Heng had summoned before. From the intelligence gathered, it was clear that Fang Heng could control large groups of liquors and even use them to directly confront Holy Court forces from the Holy Realm on the battlefield. Each liquor had been classified by the Federation as an elite unit in the advanced game world. Very difficult to deal with. Su Guantong now did not doubt in her mind. The person in front of her was indeed the World Lord Fang Heng. However, since Fang Heng had chosen to conceal his identity, there must have been some reason for it. Su Guantong decided to pretend not to know. Zaka and Zate also saw the liquor, and both were slightly taken aback. Fang Heng? Is that your summoned creature? Fang Heng nodded slightly. 5 minutes passed, and the enhanced stealth skill of the liquor's modified body activated. The 2 liquor modified bodies broke out of their flesh cocoons. The 2 liquor modified bodies quickly dug through the ground using their evolved forelimbs, and in the astonished gazes of Su Guantong and the others, the liquors quickly infiltrated the ground and disappeared. Huh? Su Guantong's heart skipped a beat. Digging? They're so fast. In just 7 seconds, the 2 liquors had completely infiltrated the ground and disappeared, leaving only 2 holes in the ground. Zaka and Zate also looked at Fang Heng in surprise. Using summoned creatures for ore exploration? This actually worked? Zaka was stunned for a moment, then finally said, Fang Heng, brother, you're really something. I'm impressed. Fang Heng's expression remained calm as he released his perception to control the liquor's movements. The underground sand layer in the forest area was much firmer than in the desert, so the digging efficiency of the liquor was a bit slower. Soon, after digging over 30 meters underground, the liquor discovered a cavern. Found it. Fang Heng controlled the liquor to climb back up and informed Zaka and the others, there is an underground cavern about 32 meters beneath us. I think the true entrance to the cavern might be located elsewhere. Zaka swallowed nervously. Goodness, 30 meters down, and how long has it been? If we were digging by hand, it would take us most of the day. Zate asked, can we confirm that the spirit crystal is inside the cavern? Not yet. We'll have to go down and see for ourselves. Fang Heng could only rely on spiritual perception and game hints to control the liquor, so he wasn't sure whether there was a spirit crystal mine down there. By the time they finished speaking, the 2 liquors had already expanded the tunnel and returned to the surface, staying near Fang Heng. It's ready. Fang Heng stepped forward, looked down at the tunnel, and nodded. I've confirmed there are no mutant worms below. I'll go down first, you can follow me. With that, Fang Heng leapt straight into the dark cavern below. Zaka and the others exchanged glances and nodded, following Fang Heng down the hole. Deep in the cavern, more than 30 meters underground. The cavern was lit by the faint glow of some unknown ore scattered around, providing a dim light that illuminated the surroundings. Fang Heng landed and quickly scanned the area. It was clear that the cavern had been mined. There were also towering stone pillars around, similar to the ones outside. Each pillar was embedded with spirit gemstones. There are signs of human excavation here. It looks like the underground structures were built by some ancient race. It seems no one has been here for a long time. Zate and the others also climbed down and quickly checked the surroundings. Finding nothing unusual, they turned their attention back to Fang Heng. Fang Heng, anything unusual? Fang Heng walked up to a large stone pillar, took the spirit gemstone embedded in it, and held it up to inspect. Hint: the player has discovered a spirit gemstone, quality B, nothing special. These stone pillars are similar to the ones outside, and the spirit gemstones embedded in them are about the same level. Everyone, come here and take a look. Su Guantong, holding her mapping device, traced an energy reaction along the stone wall. The spirit crystal energy reaction here has significantly increased. Zate stepped up beside Su Guantong and tried tapping the stone wall with the hilt of his sword. He felt the force and sound of the impact, then furrowed his brow. It seems hollow. I'll take care of it. Everyone, step aside a bit. Feng Heng moved toward the stone wall, an alloy metal rod appearing in his hand. He swung the rod and struck the stone wall forcefully. Bang! With a loud crash, the stone wall exploded, and large chunks of debris fell from the ceiling. After clearing the rubble, the shattered rock wall revealed a mining area that had been largely excavated, with mining tools scattered all around. Zate walked over and began inspecting the area, analyzing the pickaxes on the ground and said, "These tools have been here for at least several decades. Also, the craftsmanship is quite crude. The people who built this cavern were likely the indigenous inhabitants of this world." Zate looked puzzled and asked, "Why would the indigenous people have built this underground cavern and then covered up the mining area?" "Don't overthink it. This was hundreds of years ago, and the indigenous people were wiped out by mutant worms. What's the point in wondering about them now?" Zaka shrugged and pulled out a multifunctional engineer shovel from his backpack. "Anyway, we should just focus on mining some spirit crystals and take them back to complete the mission, right, Feng Heng?" "Yeah, let's mine some more and take a batch back to check the situation." After hearing Feng Heng's approval, everyone nodded and took out their shovels, starting to mine spirit crystals. Feng Heng also grabbed a shovel and began digging. Hint: the player has obtained spirit crystal ore, quality C. The game hint appeared on Feng Heng's retina. Since Feng Heng's mining skill was fully maxed out, the spirit crystal ores he mined were of a slightly higher level than the others. The problem, however, was that once his backpack reached its 100-item capacity, it became fully loaded. Any additional ores would significantly increase his weight, resulting in negative effects like slower movement speed. For veteran players like Zaka, mining was a core skill, and with the help of high-tech shovels, everyone quickly filled up their backpacks with materials. After harvesting the spirit gemstones from the stone pillars and collecting most of the ores in the mining area, Feng Heng checked the time, nodded, and said, "Alright, let's head back to the ship and deliver the mission." Chapter 2824, Exchange in the Ship Area. Apart from Feng Heng and his group of elite mercenaries recruited by the Western District Federation, a large number of military personnel from the Federation had also joined the game. However, the military players were all gathered in the ship's area, relying on the ship to snipe at the mutant worm swarms. Captain Zoran, hearing a report from his subordinate, was intrigued. They had discovered a new crystal ore deposit located in the desert region to the south. In the desert, there was a special type of mutant worm that ordinary players could not possibly approach. Yet, they had found the crystal ore there? His subordinate suggested, "Commander, according to the data transmitted from the star chart, the energy fluctuations from this patch of crystal ore are strong, indicating a large number of spirit crystals stored there. Should we send people to participate in ore collection?" "No need. Let the mercenaries scout the area first. We will act later," Zoran replied. "Understood." Soon, with another round of spatial transmission initiated by the ship, Feng Heng and his group, along with another player team, were transmitted back to the ship. Other smaller teams, already familiar with Zoran, quickly submitted the materials they had gathered before using the spatial transition to leave once again. Feng Heng glanced at them, then turned to Captain Zoran and said, "Captain Zoran, we'd like to exchange some items." "Of course," Zoran nodded. "Battlefield contribution points can be exchanged through the ship's mainframe anytime, no need for my approval." "Thank you." Feng Heng walked to the side and connected to the ship's mainframe. Hint: the player is connecting to the star map network. The player's current permission, B level. The player can exchange certain items with battlefield contribution points. A list of exchange options appeared in front of Feng Heng, and he quickly scanned through them. He found it. Skill Book Gemstone Refining. Hint: the player consumes 2 million battlefield contribution points. Player successfully exchanges Skill Book Gemstone Refining. After the exchange, a skill book appeared in Feng Heng's right hand. The skill book quickly disintegrated into star-like particles and was absorbed into his body. Hint: the player meets the prerequisites for learning this skill. The player has gained the skill Gemstone Refining, skill, Gemstone Refining, level 1. Description: the player can refine certain gemstones. Use 10 gemstones of the same tier as material for refining. There is a 5% plus skill level percent chance to obtain a higher tier gemstone. Description: the player can refine raw crystal ores. Upon successful refining, they will obtain gemstones of the corresponding quality. There is a small chance to gain a higher quality gemstone, 50% success rate, 5% for a great success. Description: the player can refine gemstones of level F and below. Additional description: the success rate is influenced by the player's skill level and mental strength. A maximum of 15% additional success rate can be gained through mental strength. The raw materials will be destroyed after refining. Additional description: the skill can be leveled up to level 50. Feng Heng looked at the skill description, contemplating it for a moment. The initial success rate for gemstone refining was low and would depend heavily on skill and spirit attributes. However, at the highest level, the success rate could reach 70%, which was more than sufficient. It was just a matter of slowly refining gemstones to level up the skill. With a rough idea in his mind, Feng Heng looked up and said, "Zaka, let's go." Huh? Zaka, who had been preparing to submit the crystal ores they had gathered as spoils and exchange them for battlefield contribution points, froze for a moment when he heard Feng Heng's words. "We're leaving?" What did that mean? Were they turning in the mission? But they were already at full capacity with their backpacks. Zaka had a strange look on his face, but seeing Feng Heng's calm expression, he realized he wasn't joking. So, he retracted his hand and returned to Feng Heng's side. After all the gemstones had been acquired through Feng Heng, so if he said not to turn them in, they wouldn't. Better to stick close to the person leading them. Zaka understood it very clearly. Since they had chosen to rely on Feng Heng, they would stick with him. "We're leaving." As Feng Heng spoke, he casually took the remaining multifunctional engineer shovels, left out for players to take, and placed them into his backpack. He then returned to the blue transition pillar of light, along with Su Guantong and the others, disappearing quickly from the ship. Captain Zoran watched their departure thoughtfully, having observed their every movement carefully. He asked, "What did they just exchange?" A nearby guard quickly checked the data and nodded, replying, "They exchanged for a skill book on gemstone refining." Zoran raised an eyebrow, a glint of interest appearing in his eyes. "Are you sure?" The guard, startled by Zoran's reaction, quickly checked the instrument again. "Yes, the player who exchanged for the skill book is Feng Heng. He, along with 3 other members, was invited to join the Star Map project today." The guard had spoken cautiously, casting a glance at Zoran, thinking to himself, why was the captain reacting so strongly? The guard saw that Zoran's expression did not change, so he continued his report. Additionally, the 3 of them were specially approved by the guard unit to join. "I see." Zoran lightly tapped his fingers on his pants leg, his face showing a hint of curiosity. "They were specially approved by the guard unit. They've only been in the game for a little over an hour, and they've already gathered so many contribution points to exchange for the gemstone refining skill book?" His guess seemed right, they were likely the players who had discovered the new mining point. But why did they exchange it for the refining skill book? Was it to refine gemstones themselves? How long would it take to refine them? Zoran's face showed more curiosity. Interesting. Half an hour later, Feng Heng and his group returned to the underground cave in the forest. Zaka and the others were puzzled, but they followed Feng Heng's instructions and stacked the ores they had gathered earlier on the ground. Then, they watched as Feng Heng stood alone in the center of the cave. Just as they were feeling confused, Zate suddenly had a jolt in his eyelids. He saw several rapidly rotating magic arrays appear under Feng Heng's feet. Whoosh! 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 A large number of liquors rapidly sprang out of the magic arrays. Zaka was stunned, his eyes fixed on the flashing magic arrays. A summoning spell? Good grief! He could summon so many. In the blink of an eye, the liquors that continuously poured out of the magic arrays filled half of the underground cave. The summoning continued until there were about 3,000 liquors, and only then did the magic arrays stop appearing. Suddenly, Feng Heng summoned creatures made Zaka realize something. No way? Zaka's heart skipped a beat as he turned and stared at Feng Heng among the swarm of liquors, his eyes full of disbelief. "Hey, brothers." Zaka swallowed, speaking softly. "Could it be that this Feng Heng?" Zate nodded and said, "Yeah, I think he must be the World Lord, Feng Heng." "Wait, what?" Zaka turned to Zate and Su Guantong, who both had calm expressions, and said in surprise, "You two knew already? I'm the only one who just figured it out?" Chapter 2825, Secrets. Su Guantong shook her head, her gaze fixed on Feng Heng. "Not really that early." Zate said, "Didn't you say you were going to hug a big thigh? Since Mr. Feng didn't reveal his identity from the beginning, we should still pretend we don't know anything." Zaka was dumbfounded upon hearing this. That made a lot of sense. In no time, the liquors that sprang from the magic arrays gathered around Feng Heng's feet and quickly formed into flesh cocoons. In just a few seconds, vine-transformed zombies crawled out of the pulsating flesh cocoons. Zombies. He was definitely the World Lord, Feng Heng. Zaka became even more certain of his guess. Under the amazed gazes of Zaka and the others, divine zombies scattered and began gathering scattered abandoned pickaxes, attempting to gather wood and stone to craft stone pickaxes. Next, the zombies all headed towards the mining area, beginning to mine ores in the spirit crystal mine domain. Zaka swallowed nervously. Zombies could mine too? Soon, as the digging continued, the zombies walked back and forth in front of Zaka and the others, discarding the mine doors at their feet. Zaka stared at their actions and the growing pile of ores in front of him, feeling somewhat stunned. What was the meaning of this? Su Guantong was also shaken. She had seen detailed information about Feng Heng in the Federation's database, which also described the summoning of zombies. It was said that zombie summons not only had extremely strong combat strength but could also assist with tasks like transporting, digging, and building. The Federation database only had a cold line of text, but seeing this with her own eyes, Su Guantong realized just how terrifying this ability was. One person was enough to rival the strength of a large team. In fact, it was even stronger than a large team. Feng Heng quickly completed a few more magic arrays in another part of the open space and then walked over to Zaka and the others. Everyone. Zaka, still stunned, instinctively looked up at Feng Heng when he heard the voice. Everyone, I need you to help with something. Sure, of course, Zaka quickly nodded. Mr. Feng, whatever you need. Feng Heng noticed the change in how they were addressing him and realized they had already figured out his identity. He nodded and said, I'll need you to keep the zombie matter confidential. Of course. Zaka made a gesture across his lips, it'll be top secret. My summons can't differentiate between ore levels, so I need you to help sort and separate them. Later, the zombies will place the ores into the magic arrays, and they'll carry out the next step of refinement. The zombies' intelligence was still a major issue, and they weren't as convenient as players. Huh? They can automatically refine them. Zaka was once again shocked by this. The zombie summons were not only capable of gathering resources, but they could also refine crystal ore? Wasn't this just a direct way to mine refined products? How was this any different from cheating? 10 crystal ores or gemstones of the same level placed into the magic array, then the zombies will automatically start refining. Thanks for your help, please begin immediately. Okay, no problem. I'll give it a try. Zaka nodded and tried to sort out 10 pieces of crystal ore. He picked up the crystal ore and walked up to the magic array, placing the ore into it. The zombie standing by the magic array immediately reacted. The magic array slowly blossomed with a faint glow. At the same time, Feng Heng's retina displayed a series of game hints. Hint: the player's zombie clone is currently refining spirit crystal ore. Hint: the player's zombie clone failed to refine the crystal ore. The player gained 120 gemstone refining experience points. Bang! The magic array at the center suddenly exploded, and the original ore turned into dust. Ah, this. Zaka stared at the magic array, which had turned to powder, unsure of what to do next. It's okay, it's just a failed refinement. The skill is still new, and the level is low, so the success rate is not high. It will gradually improve over time, Feng Heng said, glancing at the game hint. He continued, keep going. You just need to sort the ores. The zombies will handle the transport. Oh, alright. Zaka agreed, and then, along with Su Guantong and Sate, they continued to pick up the ores on the ground and sort them. Su Guantong observed quietly. Feng Heng's special summoning ability was incredibly strong, but it had its weaknesses. For example, the summons didn't have high intelligence. After thinking carefully, Su Guantong felt a chill. If the summons were already this strong, what would happen if they also had enhanced intelligence? Who could compete with that? Meanwhile, Feng Heng was adjusting the assembly line operations based on the zombies' actions. He wasn't in a rush. The skill level was low, and the refinement success rate was also low. It would take time. Even if the crystal tempering failed, he would still gain experience points for his tempering skill. Once the skill was maxed out, the success rate for crafting would reach 65%. As the zombie clones crafted various wooden pickaxes, the mining efficiency slowly increased. The mining efficiency had already reached its limit, right? Zaka was thinking about this when his eyelid twitched. Zaka and his group didn't have much to do. Once the assembly line was perfected, their task was just to classify the ores. They simply had to sort the spirit crystals the zombies gathered by quality and level. Afterward, the zombies would automatically transport the refined gemstones back. Soon, over half an hour had passed, and the mining area was surrounded by a circle of zombies. The mining efficiency had already reached its limit, right? Zaka was thinking about this when his eyelid twitched. More? He looked up and saw magic arrays rising beneath Feng Heng's feet once again. A large number of liquors emerged from the magic arrays. The liquors quickly gathered around Feng Heng, forming flesh cocoons on the spot. After 5 minutes of incubation, lickers with stealth abilities emerged from the flesh cocoons. Kai. The transformed lickers didn't mind but quickly climbed up the cave walls and disappeared through the tunnel the group had come from. Saga's eyelid twitched again. Together, there must be over 10,000 of them now, right? How many summons could Fang Heng call? Was it truly unlimited? The power of the World Lord was indeed terrifying. Everyone. Fang Heng approached Saga and the others once again. I need you to do me a favor and run an errand. Saga immediately stood up, patting his pants. No problem, Mr. Fang. Just tell me what you need. Fang Heng pointed to a batch of B-grade gemstones sorted on the side. The first batch of gemstones has been tempered. I'll need you to carry them back to the ship and exchange them for contribution points for me. After that, I'll also need to exchange for a few more cargo drones and bring back more multifunctional combat shovels. Chapter 2826, Combat Shovel. The tempering skill turned out to be harder to level up than Fang Heng had anticipated. At present, the tempering level was at level 31, and the highest grade that could be synthesized was only B level. Judging by this efficiency, the upper limit of what he could likely produce would be S-level gemstones. There was still significant room to improve excavation efficiency. At the moment, aside from the shortage of zombie clones, they also needed more tools. It might be best to sell a batch of gemstones first to buy tools and boost efficiency, then think about expanding production. This. Saga glanced at the pile of B-level gemstone crystals stacked to the side. Each B-level gemstone could be exchanged for 30,000 battlefield contribution points. Due to game restrictions, carrying more than 100 in the backpack would trigger additional negative effects. Without considering potential upcoming battles, the absolute limit they could carry was 120. That was worth a staggering 3.6 million points. Was Mr. Fang really not worried about them running off with all this loot? Time's about up, Fang Heng said after checking the game hint timer. There's a little over half an hour until the next ship departs. Get ready, we're heading out. Alright. Saga didn't dwell on it and quickly moved over to pack the gemstones. Fang Heng, aren't you coming back with us? Su Guantong looked at Fang Heng and said, without you, we might not be able to cross the desert region safely, especially on the return trip. The artifact carriers are bulky and move slowly, it'll be even harder to pass through the desert. No worries, it won't be a problem. Huh? What did that mean? Su Guantong was taken aback. She had thought their previous safe passage through the desert was thanks to Fang Heng's domain ability. But now it seemed that wasn't the case. I've already made arrangements. You'll be able to cross the desert directly. Fang Heng was confident. After all, he had just summoned over 5,000 stealth-capable liquor-modified bodies to lurk beneath the sand and slaughter burrowing sand locusts, earning battlefield contribution points in the process. Those liquors would also secretly protect Su Guantong's team. Nothing would go wrong. Alright. Although still puzzled, Su Guantong didn't press further. After filling her backpack with gemstones, she left through the passage with the Zaka brothers. Fang Heng watched them leave, then lowered his head to continue manually sorting ore. Time to keep grinding. Meanwhile, most of the mutant worms and mosquitoes in the forest had already been cleared out by Fang Heng, leaving only a few scattered stragglers that no longer posed any threat to Zaka and his group. Su Guantong and the others quickly made their way through the forest and reached the edge of the desert region. Staring at the vast expanse of sand ahead, the group exchanged glances. Was it really safe? Zate spoke up, with Mr. Fang's strength, I'm sure it's fine. Zaka still felt uneasy. He thought to himself, what does this have to do with strength? No matter how powerful Fang Heng was, could he really control the mutant worms buried deep in the desert remotely? Let's move, no point wasting time. Off to the side, Su Guantong pulled an energy crystal hoverboard from her backpack, stepped onto it, and glided toward the heart of the desert. Seeing Zate and Su Guantong already moving, Zaka gritted his teeth and followed suit on his hoverboard. As they entered the desert region, everything ahead remained eerily calm. There wasn't a hint of danger anywhere. Zaka's constant caution now seemed completely unnecessary. Strange. There weren't even the usual ripples or disturbances in the sand like the last time they came through. It was as if, in the short time they'd spent inside the iron mine, the desert's mutant worms had been completely wiped out. Su Guantong furrowed her brow. Though she trusted Fang Heng's abilities, she had no idea how he had pulled this off. Had he somehow cleared the entire desert of mutant worms using some special method? Was it really that exaggerated? Impossible. Su Guantong shook her head and dismissed the thought. The burrowing sand locusts weren't like normal monsters. Once they tunneled deep into the sand, who could even find them? So Fang Heng must have used some other method. Perhaps something like a perception blocking field? The journey remained smooth. 10 minutes later, they successfully crossed the desert and arrived at the gathering point well ahead of the next scheduled ship departure. Coincidentally, as Saga's group reached the base of the ship to await spatial transmission, 3 other player teams also arrived early. The other players eyed Suguatong's group curiously, clearly unfamiliar with them. Saga thought about making small talk but decided against it, mindful of the mission they were on. Once aboard the ship, they immediately submitted the B-level spirit crystals to the ship's mainframe to complete the mission. Each of them pocketed 360,000 contribution points. Saga stared at his character panel, watching his personal battlefield contribution points skyrocket, and he felt like he was dreaming. Damn. Who would have thought they'd rake in this many points in less than half a day since entering the game? And this was just the beginning. Once Fang Heng's zombie production ramped up, the scale of their earnings would multiply several times over. Even if they just got a small share, they'd be swimming in rewards. Cling to the big boss, cling to the big boss. Saga muttered under his breath as he began exchanging points for large cargo-carrying artifact robots, just as Fang Heng had instructed. However, he ran into a snag when it came to the multifunctional combat shovels. Those were freely available rather than exchanged, but the stock had run out. The ship hadn't prepared many, as normally 1 per ordinary player was sufficient. And since no new players had arrived in recent days, no one had restocked them. There weren't even any available in the exchange menu. Suguatong's group exchanged a look, then reluctantly decided to approach Captain Zoran for help. Captain Zoran had been watching them. He'd noticed that the group seemed to be missing a member. Had someone died? While wondering about it, he saw Saga's group walking toward him. Captain, do you have any spare multifunctional combat shovels? Out of stock? Weren't there a dozen or so left this morning? Zoran waved over a subordinate to grab a few from the warehouse. Captain, a few might not be enough. We need a lot more. Huh? Zoran raised an eyebrow. Why do you need so many shovels? Saga scratched his head, unsure how to explain. It's for some tactical arrangements. We can use contribution points to trade for them. Forget it. Zoran waved it off and signaled to his subordinate, bring them 20. Captain, that probably won't be enough. How many do you need then? Saga glanced at Suguatong and sat beside him. Judging by the load capacity of the cargo artifact robots they could now acquire, around 5,000 shovels should do for now. If needed, they could always transport more next time. Saga nodded and turned to Zoran and said, roughly 5,000, Captain. What? Did you say 5,000? Chapter 2827, Hostile. 10 minutes later, Captain Zoran watched as Saga and his group transitioned and teleported away. Standing on the deck of the ship, he saw below that 20 transport drones were arranged in 2 rows, quickly advancing westward under Saga's lead. In the end, the ship had provided 5,000 multifunctional combat shovels, charging them 100,000 contribution points. When Zoran first heard they wanted 5,000 combat shovels, he almost lost it, taking a long time to calm himself down. What were they planning to do with so many combat shovels? A subordinate soldier approached Zoran and reported, Captain, I checked the mainframe, and they just submitted 355 B-grade spirit gemstones. Zoran was surprised. That many? Did the ore site they found yield direct spirit gemstones? And all B-grade? Zoran furrowed his brows, feeling something strange. The same question remained, what were they doing with so many combat shovels? Also, Captain, several mercenary groups have already moved toward the desert region to investigate. Should we intervene? Zoran pondered for a moment. Those troublesome mercenary groups. Last time, they started a fight over resources, and it took Zoran quite some effort to mediate and assign tasks. Take a few men and follow them. These mercenaries are our assets. See what's going on and maintain control of the situation. Don't let things get out of hand. Yes, sir. Understood. 10 minutes later. At the desert's edge. Several player mercenary groups had gathered. Mercenary Commander Cole gazed into the distant desert. A few days ago, after the discovery of several spirit crystal mines, mercenary groups clashed to seize mining rights. Eventually, under Federation mediation, the mines were divided according to each group's strength. After a period of transport and mining, most of the mines were nearly depleted. Cole was considering expanding the team to search for the next mine when a new area suddenly appeared on the map terrain. A subordinate reported, Commander, it should be deeper into the desert, about 5 kilometers ahead. It's a large area. Cole nodded slightly and said, the crystal ore's energy fluctuation is strong. This might be the largest mine we've discovered so far. Commander, I've contacted some friends to investigate. The discoverer of this crystal mine isn't from any of the major mercenary groups. If we can seize it first, we'll gain significant leverage. The Western District Federation recruited teams from all over the world. Unlike Fang Heng, most arrived early and had an extra day to prepare, so they naturally split into their teams. Cole's expression grew serious as he said, "This desert region is no easy walk." It wasn't that no player teams had tried to conquer this area before. During the early days after entering the game world, several player teams had attempted to take control of the domain, and some even briefly formed alliances. But unfortunately, all of their efforts ended in failure. The burrowing sand locusts were too troublesome. The edges of the desert were manageable, but once they ventured deeper, swarms of locusts attacked from all directions, overwhelming them. "Commander, by the way, we just saw a player team pass directly through the desert without being attacked by the burrowing sand locusts." "Really? How did they manage that?" "No idea." The subordinate shook his head, then added, "But we also tried entering the desert, and there were far fewer burrowing sand locusts than before. If we're careful, we should make it through." Cole pondered. He thought it was likely that the burrowing sand locusts had somehow significantly decreased in number and that the small team had coincidentally possessed some form of aura concealment technique or ritual, allowing them to smoothly enter the heart of the desert and successfully locate the spirit crystal mine. It was just a stroke of luck for those few, nothing more. Cole raised his head, ready to lead his team into the desert, when a player hurried over and said, "Captain, someone's coming from behind, and they've brought a batch of transport drones." Transport drones? Cole frowned. In fact, after practical testing, players found that the transport drones weren't very useful. They were slow, bulky, and easy targets for enemies on the battlefield. Furthermore, if they were damaged along the way, players couldn't repair them, and they couldn't even bring them back to be fixed. Of course, the worst part was the exorbitant cost of the transport drones. "Captain, the team I saw earlier, that was them." "Interesting, let's wait and see," Cole replied. He signaled for the team to hold off for a moment. After a while, Saga and his group arrived at the desert's edge with a mechanical transport convoy. Saga noticed a large group of players gathered at the desert's edge. He immediately felt a pang of unease and became more cautious. They weren't here with good intentions. Players were typically grouped into teams upon entering the game, but that didn't mean they couldn't reform teams after entering. The enemy had a large number of people. If a confrontation started, they wouldn't have the upper hand. Cole was also observing the group. Something felt off. Despite their small number, they had many transport drones. What were they transporting? Cole's team was eyeing the large crates loaded onto the transport drones. One of the players from Cole's group stepped forward and asked Zaka's team, "Are you all heading into the desert to search for spirit ore as well?" "You too?" We're definitely interested in the mission. But the mutant worms in the desert are so annoying." "How did you all manage to get into the desert?" the player asked. "That's not something we can share." "Don't let us delay your business," Zate said coldly, shaking his head, signaling his team to continue. "Don't try to play coy with me." Another player from the group sneered, stepping in front of Zate's team and glaring at Zaka's group, his expression filled with malice. "We know it was you who discovered the ore site. Our leader is kind-hearted, and we're offering to cooperate because we respect you. But if other teams get their hands on you, they'll strip you clean of everything." "Wu Zhao." "Enough!" Cole shouted, giving a reprimanding glance at his subordinate before turning to Zate's group. "I apologize for my subordinate's rudeness. To be honest with all of you, the Federation's surveying instruments have shared the mining site coordinates. It's not just us, other teams have already discovered this mining area as well, and most of them are on their way here. Even if you don't tell us, we'll likely find a way to break through the desert area soon enough." Chapter 2828, Robbery. Cole suggested, "Instead of wasting time in this deadlock, why don't we cooperate? You take us into the mining area, and in return, I'll allow you to collect resources there and offer you protection. How about that?" Saga and his two companions exchanged glances. What a joke. They were the ones who discovered the mining area in the first place. What did they need protection for? If they couldn't even handle the tasks Fang Heng had assigned, how could they ever hope to cling to his coattails in the future? Saga stared coldly at Cole's group and asked, "And what if we refuse?" "Ha ha ha, refuse? Do you think we're giving you a choice?" Wu Zhao took a step forward, grinning viciously at the group. "Then none of you are leaving." As he spoke, a ring of people closed in, surrounding Wu Zhao's group tightly. Saga and his two companions exchanged anxious glances. What now? They hadn't expected that the Western District Federation mercenaries would resort to violence, relying on sheer numbers to make their move. "Humphrey. Everyone, move out. Let's see what kind of goods are loaded onto their war machines." Zaka's face slightly changed, ready to take action, but Zate reached out and gently stopped him. Zate shook his head lightly. Wu Zhao noticed Zaka and his group weren't resisting, and a mocking grin appeared on his face as he snapped his fingers. More than 20 players immediately lunged at the transport drones with the ferocity of wolves. Be careful when dismantling them. Wu Zhao casually wiped the short blade in his hand. Don't damage my loot. The players were curious. What was packed inside those materials crates on the drones? One player, at the front, climbed up behind a transport drone and reached out to touch the surface of one of the crates. Suddenly, he felt a subtle vibration from beneath the drone. Beep, beep, beep. The player heard a faint electronic sound. What? Not good. Cole, hearing the sound, suddenly realized what was happening and was about to warn everyone. Boom. Boom 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 boom. In the next instant, the self-destruct devices inside 20 transport drones were triggered simultaneously. A violent explosion. 20 clouds of smoke burst out, and within the smoke, metal wreckage shot out like a rainstorm. The nearby players were instantly blasted away by the immense shock wave of the explosion. When the smoke cleared, 20 shallow circular craters appeared on the ground. Ahem. Damn. Wu Zhao was also sent flying, landing on the ground and coughing up sand and gravel. The energy shield he had automatically activated had shattered into powder in the explosion. Looking around, he saw the surviving players struggling to get up, many with metal fragments embedded in their bodies. Looking back, Saga and his group had used the explosion as cover to enter the desert region. Idiot. What will you chase them with now? Cole walked up and kicked Wu Zhao, who was lying on the ground, venting his wrath. There were over 20 of them, yet they couldn't even capture 3 people and ended up covered in dirt and dust. The injured players struggled to get up and began helping their teammates. Thankfully, everyone was wearing tactical energy protection gear. The equipment absorbed a significant amount of the impact damage. While many players were seriously wounded by metal fragments piercing their bodies, at least their lives were spared. Looking back toward the desert, Saga and his group had already entered deeper into the desert, fleeing quickly into the distance. Sorry, boss. Wu Zhao struggled to get up, letting blood trickle down his face as he stared venomously at Saga's group disappearing into the desert. He hadn't expected Saga's team to be so ruthless, directly triggering the self-destruct on their expensive transport drones, not even caring about the materials inside. Boss, give me one more chance. I'll make sure to kill them. Cole's gaze was also cold as he said, cut out this bandit attitude. This isn't the North District. Right now, we're mercenaries for the Western District Federation. Acting impulsively would make it hard to explain to the Western District Federation. Sorry. I don't want to hear that nonsense. Cole's eyes remained focused on Saga's group as they continued to move deeper into the desert. As Saga's group ventured further in, a look of suspicion appeared on Cole's face. Something was strange. There were clearly numerous mutant worms hidden in the desert. Why, then, did the mutant worms not appear when Saga's group entered the desert? Boss? What is it? The stuff those people left in the material crates. We've checked. Wu Zhao scratched his head, his expression somewhat unnatural. It's all multifunctional combat shovels. Huh? Cole was slightly confused, turning back to Wu Zhao for confirmation. What did you say? Combat shovels? Wu Zhao grimaced, cursing Saga and his group internally a dozen times. What the hell? They'd gone through all that trouble, and all they got were combat shovels. What the hell was wrong with these people? Why go through so much effort to deliver so many combat shovels? Cole turned back to his subordinates, who were now handling the combat shovels, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. Strange. Combat shovels? Boss, should we? One of his subordinates cautiously asked. That group is getting far. Should we follow them? Idiot, what are you chasing now? Cole cursed. Tell your people to get back to full strength first. Understood. Meanwhile, in the central desert forest, Fang Heng had been timing things, preparing a batch of zombie clones to receive the materials. However, he only saw Saga and his team return, covered in dirt and looking dejected. What happened? Where are the materials? We ran into a group of players on our way back from the desert, and they stole the goods. Saga knew he had messed up, his face grim as he recounted the encounter with Cole's team in detail. Mr. Fang, we're sorry. We should have been more careful. No, it's not your fault. The transport drones were large and easy to target, it was expected someone would notice them. I just didn't expect the players to arrive so quickly. Fang Heng waved his hand, though there was a hint of frustration in his heart. It's common to get wet when walking by the river. He had always been the one to steal from others, but now it was his turn to be robbed. Su Guantong spoke up, although we triggered the war machine's self-destruct mode, the crates containing the combat shovels were specially made. The explosion wouldn't affect the shovel's functionality. I think the players who took them won't be able to use them for anything useful. We can still catch up with them. Alright, thanks for your hard work. Rest here for now, I'll figure out how to get the stuff back. Saga looked at Fang Heng, who spoke casually yet ominously, and swallowed nervously. Great. These idiots had stolen from the World Lord, Fang Heng. This was bad. The thought of Fang Heng coming after them made Saga feel a surge of energy, and he immediately stood up. Mr. Fang, I'm fine. I'll go with you. Fang Heng glanced at Saga. That's fine too. Chapter 2829, Going Deep. 20 minutes later. After the team had rested, Cole led his subordinate team into the desert region. Kai. After advancing several hundred meters into the desert region, the sound of hissing came from the surrounding sands. Be careful, stop. Cole, alert, looked around and waved his hand to signal the team to halt. Kai. From the surrounding sand, more than 10 burrowing sand locusts suddenly emerged and swiftly charged towards Cole's team of players. The players had already anticipated an encounter with the burrowing sand locusts. The front-line players quickly rolled backward to avoid the attacks while the rear players used beam weapons to aim and fire. The burrowing sand locusts had low health, and with concentrated fire, they were immediately killed. Boss, looks like our judgment was right. The number of burrowing sand locusts has been greatly reduced, Wu Zhao said, licking his lips, with a malicious look in his eyes. Once we find those players from earlier, they'll learn the price of crossing us. Be careful. Let's move on. I understand. Wu Zhao nodded and signaled the team to continue. Although the number of burrowing sand locusts had decreased significantly compared to the previous days, the team was still occasionally attacked during their progress, slowing their pace. Huh? There were people ahead? Cole suddenly noticed figures appearing in the distance. His brows furrowed as he signaled the team to stop. In the distance, 2 figures riding energy crystal hoverboards were quickly approaching them. So fast? Aren't they afraid of being attacked by the burrowing sand locusts? Boss, that's the guy from earlier, but the other one is unfamiliar. As they got closer, Wu Zhao recognized Saga, and a flash of anger appeared in his eyes. Wait. Let's see what they're up to. Cole felt something wasn't right and motioned for Wu Zhao not to act yet. When Fang Heng and Saga approached, Wu Zhao stepped forward, pointing a finger at Saga and cursing, "Damn. You still dare to come here? Leave this to me." Fang Heng reached out to stop Saga, who had cleared his throat and was about to argue. He stepped off the energy crystal hoverboard and coldly stared at Wu Zhao. I heard you stole my things. How are you going to settle this? Settle this? It's just trash. I gave you face, and you. Wu Zhao's words were abruptly cut off as his pupils suddenly shrank. Fang Heng's figure had mysteriously disappeared from his sight. Bang. Suddenly, a loud explosion rang in his ears. Wu Zhao was shocked to find that the shield of his tactical protective suit had shattered in an instant. At that moment, Fang Heng appeared before him as if he had instantaneously transitioned through space, his right index finger pointing at his forehead. Holy shit! Wu Zhao stared at Fang Heng, cold sweat sliding down his face. The speed at which Fang Heng had acted was terrifying. He wasn't even in the same league. Wu Zhao had no idea how the shield of his protective suit had broken apart. He didn't doubt for a second that if Fang Heng had wanted to, he would already be dead and reborn. Hey! Fang Heng saw the terror on Wu Zhao's face and sneered, then flicked his fingers. Pa! With a snap, he hit Wu Zhao's head, sending him stumbling backward, taking several steps before managing to steady himself. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The surrounding players immediately raised their energy beam guns and aimed them at Fang Heng. Stop! Cole immediately shouted for the players to stand down. The opponent was terrifying. That last attack had no visible trajectory. This person was definitely a top-tier player, accustomed to high-level games. He was not someone to mess with. Where did he come from? Cole's eyes showed a hint of interest, and he felt a desire to recruit him. He said, "My friend, please don't be angry. It seems there has been some misunderstanding. I am Cole, the commander of the mercenary group. We can talk things through. Is that so? So you're the leader." Fang Heng shifted his gaze from Wu Zhao to Cole. "You stole my things, and you think a simple misunderstanding will make it go away?" Cole felt like he was being tightly watched by a fierce beast. His heart tightened. The opponent was strong. Not easy to deal with. Cole quickly thought of a strategy and stepped forward, cupping his hands towards Fang Heng. "May I ask your name? We're new to the Federation's western region. If we've offended you in any way, I hope you'll forgive us." "Forgive you? You mean you're willing to compensate?" Fang Heng stroked his chin, thinking for a moment. He felt that he needed more manpower for his plans, so he nodded and said, "It's not impossible. Since you've damaged my transport drone, you can work as laborers. Send over the combat shovels first and bring them to the forest. There will be more work for you later. Friend, don't go too far." Cole's face darkened when he heard Fang Heng casually treat them as transport drones. Wu Zhao had now recovered, walked over to Cole, and looked at Fang Hang with some fear in his eyes. The transport drone was detonated by you all yourselves, and we've suffered quite a bit of damage too. You're talking nonsense. Zaka, standing to the side, was enraged. Don't blame us. If your people hadn't come and stolen our goods, would we have blown up the transport drone? Brother, there's no need to get so angry. Like I said, it's all a misunderstanding. This world doesn't have so much right or wrong, only the interests at hand, right? Cole looked at Fang Hang and said, you're strong, but with all due respect, in this world, one person's strength is never enough. Let me share a secret. The Minister of the Western District Federation's Inspection Department, Zachary, is my distant relative. He promised to take care of me and provide a lot of internal information about the Star Map project. Zaka, hearing this, felt his heart skip a beat. He had heard of Zachary before. The Minister of the Inspection Department in the Western District Federation, who also had a seat in the Federation's parliament. It was said that this man was not to be trifled with. Fang Hang remained expressionless and said, so? How about we join forces? We can work together, and soon, the entire crystal or mining area will be under our control. A mere transport drone? You can have as many as you want. Is that all? Fang Hang calmly looked at Cole and said, you can hurry and bring me the combat shovels. I'm in a hurry. You. Cole didn't expect that after lowering himself so much, Fang Hang would give him no face. His anger boiled over, and he coldly said, don't push your luck. If I... Whoosh. Cole's words were abruptly cut off, as if they were choked in his throat. In the blink of an eye, Fang Hang had already appeared before him. One hand firmly gripped his throat, lifting him off the ground, leaving Cole suspended in midair. Chapter 2830, Combat Shovel. Cole hadn't expected Fang Hang to dare make a move on him in front of so many people, losing his face in the process. Let go of me. I'm the nephew of Minister Zachary. How dare you make a move on me? If you act recklessly, Minister Zachary will come after you. He'll make sure you can't take a single step in the Western District Federation. Meanwhile, Zaka felt uneasy. This was troublesome. This guy had connections in the Federation's military department. If they had a conflict with him, they were still in the Western District Federation. What if they got targeted or set up? What would Mr. Fang do? Zaka felt nervous, lost in thought. He looked up and saw Fang Hang's mouth curl into a sneer. Then, with a forceful flick of his right hand, Cole was sent flying over 10 meters before crashing heavily into the sand. Whoosh! Zaka breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that Fang Hang had shown mercy. Kai Kai. Kai Kai. What? Zaka's heart skipped a beat at the hissing sounds. He saw Cole still on the ground, not yet getting up, when several brownish limbs suddenly shot out from the surrounding desert. They dragged Cole under the sand, and within seconds, he completely vanished from sight. Everything happened so quickly, in less than a second, Cole had disappeared from everyone's view. Zaka swallowed nervously. While others may have only seen a few shadows darting past, Zaka saw it clearly. It was a mutated liquor. The mutated liquor, hiding beneath the sand, dragged Cole completely underground and started devouring him. This. Wu Zhao and the other players didn't see exactly what happened. They only saw Cole being dragged into the sand by a monster from the desert, and they all turned to Fang Hang with looks of shock. Was that monster his summon? What the hell? He really killed Cole? Everyone involved in the mission knew who Cole was. While his personal strength was mediocre, his status wasn't. He was the nephew of Minister Zachary. Other mercenary groups would have to show some respect, think carefully about the consequences, and at least avoid making things too ugly on the surface. But now, he was killed just like that? And in such a mysterious way? Hey, what about you guys? What's your choice? Are you going to help me bring the combat shovels back? Or are you going to join him and go back to rebirth? Fang Hang looked at the rest of the players, their expressions a mix of uncertainty, and suddenly had a thought. He smiled lightly. Oh, I almost forgot, he still has one life to be reborn. You guys might not be so lucky. Wu Zhao felt a chill run up his spine as Fang Hang's gaze landed on him. It was over. If this guy dared to kill Cole, there was no way they'd survive. Damn it, how could he have been so foolish as to offend this devil just to show off in front of Cole? Boss. Wu Zhao finally realized how stupid he had been. He quickly lowered his head and apologized. It was our mistake, we failed to recognize your greatness, boss. Please forgive us. We'll get to transporting the materials right away and be back soon. Good. Hurry up and come back. Fang Hang waved his hand at Zaka, signaling to leave. Let's go. Wu Zhao stood in place, respectfully watching as Fang Hang and Zaka walked away. The rest of the mercenary group members gathered around Wu Zhao. Most of these people were Wu Zhao's subordinates, who had followed him when they latched onto Cole's group. Now that Cole was gone, Wu Zhao had become the leader. Captain, What should we do? Wu Zhao hesitated for a moment. This was bad. At this point, Wu Zhao had never imagined things would develop this way. It seemed like now was the best opportunity to run. However, Wu Zhao shrank his neck. Run? He had a terrifying gut feeling that if he dared to run, the other party would have 1,000 ways to kill him. He didn't dare to gamble. That guy was too terrifying. Not to mention, they didn't even know the other person's name. Let's go and deliver the materials first, we'll think of something later. The others also had lingering fear. They exchanged glances and nodded, beginning to transport the materials. Each player carried about 60 to 70 combat shovels in their backpack, transporting over 1,000 at a time. After several trips, they were able to complete the delivery smoothly. There was no choice. They had to do it. That guy. Damn it. Cole revived in the game cabin, his eyes bloodshot. That guy. He actually dared to kill him. The humiliation was unbearable. The staff member by the game cabin stepped forward to register, but was immediately grabbed by Cole, who snarled, "I need to see Minister Zachary. Right now." "I'll note your request," the staff member replied coldly, fully aware of the connection between Cole and the minister. However, he shot Cole a stern look and gently removed his hand. "This is the military department. Throwing tantrums won't do you any good." Cole's chest heaved with anger, struggling to contain his fury. "Send a message in the game. I need someone eliminated. I'll pay whatever it takes." Back in the game, as Wu Zhao and his team kept going back and forth, transporting combat shovels from the forest to the desert's edge, they began to feel something was off. Something wasn't right. Since Cole's death, Wu Zhao had this constant feeling that someone was watching them. What was even stranger was that while they had been making repeated trips to transport the materials, the burrowing sand locusts, which had always been a nuisance, had not appeared at all. Because of this, the transport efficiency had greatly improved. Could it be? Wu Zhao remembered the scene when Cole died and couldn't help but shrink his neck. Was it the summoned creature from that guy? Even now, Wu Zhao still didn't know the guy's name, only hearing Saga refer to him as Mr. Fang. Wu Zhao dared not make any moves, obediently making several trips with his team to finish the transport of over 5,000 combat shovels. Finally, when the last batch of shovels arrived, Wu Zhao stopped in front of the forest, looking around and calling to the players to take the shovels out of their backpacks and place them down. It was strange. The combat shovels that had been transported earlier had disappeared without a trace. What could he need so many shovels for? Wu Zhao was thinking when he suddenly turned his head to look toward the forest. Saga stepped out from the depths of the forest, a look of vengeful pleasure on his face as he looked at Wu Zhao and his group. He sneered, "So, you've almost finished transporting, huh?" Wu Zhao saw him and immediately shrank his neck, wearing a fawning smile. "We've finished transporting them. Hope it didn't delay anything for you." "Enough, no more nonsense." Saga waved his hand dismissively and said, "The next round of the ship's departure is still some time away. You guys head back once. I don't care how you do it, but I want you to bring us another 30,000 combat shovels." "Huh?" Wu Zhao was stunned. 30,000? What the hell did they need so many shovels for? Huh? What's with the surprise? Saga shot him a cold glance, continuing, "You guys haven't even paid for the damage to my transport machine. Don't think you'll be safe once the ship leaves. Mr. Fang killed Cole without a second thought, and he'll have no problem dealing with you guys." Yes. Wu Zhao nodded repeatedly, "But these combat shovels must cost money, right? Our resources might not be enough." Chapter 2831, Killing Two Birds with One Stone. Figure it out yourself. Get lost. Alright, we're on our way. Wu Zhao forced a smile and nodded repeatedly, though inwardly, he felt bitter. They had come as mercenaries to pillage and kill, but now they had become nothing more than laborers doing someone else's dirty work. Yet, due to Fang Heng's threat, no one dared to resist. They silently obeyed the orders and returned. Meanwhile, in the underground iron mine, with batch after batch of multifunctional combat shovels arriving, Fang Heng's zombie clones greatly improved the efficiency of ore extraction. Along with the additional zombie clones summoned earlier, as well as the proliferators generated by the clones, the number of zombies increased by a large margin. Over 20 magic arrays in the grotto area were operating non-stop at high speed, significantly boosting the tempering efficiency. Fang Heng's tempering skill book had reached max level just over 10 minutes ago. After another 10 minutes, he had gathered 10s level spirit gemstones. It's time to try skill advancement. At the center of the cave, Fang Heng sat cross-legged. Hint: the player has obtained 10s level spirit gemstones. The player can use these gemstones to enter the psychic storm state. If the trial is successfully completed, the player can advance to high tier psychic. Begin. Fang Heng silently murmured in his heart. The 10s level spirit gemstones arranged in front of him suddenly emitted a faint glow. With the infusion of mental strength, psychic power surged from the gemstones, like clear spring water gathering, slowly flowing into Fang Heng's body. Fang Heng closed his eyes tightly. It's here. Psychic power, unlike other forms of power, was not affected by outside forces. It moved through his body, swiftly circulating before rapidly pouring into his sea of consciousness. It wasn't long before an energy cloud formed within his sea of consciousness. Boom. 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 The energy cloud suddenly exploded in his consciousness without warning. Psychic power caused massive waves in the sea of consciousness at its center. Psychic storm. Fang Heng mumbled softly to himself. It still wasn't enough. The psychic storm could cause a certain level of destruction in the sea of consciousness. But for him, this level of destruction was too low. His sea of consciousness had been enhanced countless times and had undergone far more intense storms than this. This small disturbance was nothing to him. Fang Heng closed his eyes, stabilizing his sea of consciousness and quickly absorbing the psychic strength contained within the psychic storm. After a moment, 10 minutes passed, and the storm completely subsided. His sea of consciousness remained intact. The game prompt once again appeared on his retina. Hint: the player has advanced skill high tier psychic. Hint: the player's skill mid-tier psychic has been removed. Done. Fang Heng opened his eyes again, briefly scanning the description of the skill after its advancement. Compared to the mid-tier psychic, the high-tier psychic skill only slightly improved his spirit and will attributes. Additionally, it enhanced his resistance to psychic abilities and further boosted the effectiveness of related skills. The difference wasn't huge, it was just a slight improvement in numbers. Fang Heng thought for a moment, then picked up another S-level spirit gemstone beside him. He infused his mental strength once again. Whoosh! The spirit gemstone emitted a dark glow. Psychic strength quickly flowed from the gemstone into his body. Hint: the player absorbs psychic strength, gaining high-tier psychic skill experience plus 2912. Hint: the player absorbs psychic strength, gaining high-tier psychic skill experience plus 2899. Once the tier limit was removed, the experience points for the psychic skill started to accumulate, and the skill level began to rise slowly. Keep going. Time to grind. A trace of greed gleamed in Fang Heng's eyes. Taking advantage of the fact that there were now endless spirit gemstones available, he decided to fully level up his psychic skill. At the edge of the desert, 3 mercenary team captains gathered together, speaking quietly. Behind them, a group of over 100 mercenaries had formed. That guy Cole. Didn't expect it to happen so suddenly. That kid's always so arrogant. We gave him a bit of face out of respect, but others aren't afraid to die. It's normal for them to get taken out. Cole's offer isn't low. What do you guys think? It's tricky. The 3 mercenary team captains weren't fools. That greedy idiot Cole deserved to die, but his strength wasn't bad, and he had a whole group of subordinates to protect him. If someone could kill him without hesitation, they probably weren't simple either. I heard Cole's subordinates were threatened. They were just on the ship borrowing money to buy their lives. Maybe we should ask them about the situation. The group discussed in whispers as they looked back. They're here. Turning around, Wu Zhao and his subordinates came back, looking dejected, carrying combat shovels. Since Wu Zhao didn't have enough contribution points, he had borrowed from other teams and exchanged the shovels from the ship. Wu Zhao, a mercenary team commander, Wayne, called out from afar and asked, "What's going on with you guys? Where's your boss?" Wu Zhao saw the group, his face full of misery, and led his team over, looking downcast. "Wayne, don't mock me. I was blind and got involved with trouble I shouldn't have." Wayne, serious, asked, "Is he that strong?" Wu Zhao slumped. "Very strong." "Really?" Wayne stroked his chin, then looked up and asked, "How does he compare to Arkley?" Wu Zhao was stunned for a moment. Arkley. A mercenary player who had been invited by the Western District Federation. He was considered the strongest in the entire mercenary group, with strength enough to rival an entire team. Additionally, Arkley had a very special identity. He was a Marquis of the Vampires. After the vampires gained special dimensional power, Arkley's strength had increased dramatically. But Arkley and his subordinates were currently dealing with mutant worms at another mining area, so they weren't around. Wu Zhao thought back to when Arkley had personally taken action during the early days of joining the Western District Federation Star Map project. The overwhelming lifeblood aura had nearly suffocated him. Compared to that, Boss Fang, though strong, didn't seem to have the same oppressive feeling. Also, Boss Fang's physique was more normal. Wu Zhao carefully compared in his mind and said, "He's probably not as strong." The 3 mercenary captains exchanged quick glances. If he wasn't as strong as Arkley, then maybe it was worth considering making a move. After all, Cole's offer was generous. And Boss Fang was occupying the Spirit Crystal Mine area. If they could find an excuse to get rid of him, they could easily take over the mine area. Kill two birds with one stone. Wayne and the other two mercenary captains exchanged a look, nodded, and said, Wu Zhao, lead the way. Take us to find Boss Fang. Huh? Wu Zhao pointed to himself, you mean me? Chapter 2832, Pick a Fight. Wayne glanced sideways at Wu Zhao, thinking to himself that this guy used to be just as arrogant as Cole. How did he become so timid after some time apart? Who else could it be? Wayne frowned and continued, we took on a commission from your boss to help you get back at them. Just lead the way. And no. It's not. You guys. Wu Zhao had already been tormented by Saga for hours, and the mere mention of getting revenge sent a chill down his spine. He instinctively shrank back and quickly distanced himself from Wayne and his team. No, let me be clear first. If you guys want to cause trouble for Mr. Fang, that's your business. I'm not getting involved. Sorry, I've got other matters to handle. I'll be taking my leave now. With that, Wu Zhao turned to walk away. What do you mean? Hold on a second. What are you afraid of with so many of us here? We're helping you get back at them, and you're not even grateful? The group looked at Wu Zhao with growing curiosity. Just what kind of person was this Mr. Fang that he could scare Wu Zhao to this extent? Fine, go on then. Report back or whatever. We'll just follow behind you and meet this Mr. Fang ourselves. Whatever happens next has nothing to do with you. Wu Zhao glanced at them. That's it? Just these few people? They were nowhere near enough to stand a chance against Mr. Fang. Wu Zhao instinctively wanted to refuse, but Wayne and his team had the numbers. He had no choice but to say, all right, but stay far behind. Don't let them think I brought you there. Got it? No need for all the talk. Just pretend you don't know us and leave the rest to us. Wayne paid no mind to Wu Zhao's warning. Their mercenary group had over 100 members, most of them elite fighters, far stronger than Wu Zhao's team. Besides, they weren't here just to pick a fight right away. This was just a test. They would probe Mr. Fang's strength. If they couldn't win, they would go back and call for reinforcements, maybe even get Arkley to help. Wayne watched as Wu Zhao's group ventured deeper into the desert before signaling for his own team to follow from a distance. As they advanced through the desert, Wayne exchanged quick glances with the other two mercenary commanders. The desert was eerily quiet. During their previous expeditions, they had encountered large swarms of burrowing sand locusts. But this time, there was nothing. They weren't sure what had changed, but at least it was a good thing. No need to waste energy fighting off mutant creatures. The player team followed Wu Zhao's group from about 500 meters away. Wu Zhao was uneasy. Once they reached the forest, would Saga mistake Wayne's group for reinforcements he had called in? Just as he was thinking that, a figure appeared in the distance. It was Saga. Saga had been waiting in the forest for Wu Zhao's group to deliver their goods. After they were more than 20 minutes late, he had come to check on the situation. That was when he spotted Wu Zhao, along with a group trailing behind him. What took you so long? I thought you weren't coming, Saga said, a hint of disappointment in his tone. Wu Zhao shivered at the sound of Saga's voice and quickly explained, Big brother, all our contribution points were with Cole, so we couldn't get the combat shovels right away. Alright, enough excuses. Don't let it happen again. Saga waved him off, then turned his gaze to the group behind Wu Zhao. And who are they? They said Cole got taken down by Mr. Fang and wasn't happy about it. He spent a fortune hiring people to get revenge. I tried to talk them out of it, but they wouldn't listen. They insisted on following me here. Humphrey, alright. At least you know how to stay out of trouble. Wu Zhao's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately shook his head. They have nothing to do with me. They're just some mercenary squads recruited by the Western District Federation. Cole brought them in. They said Cole got taken down by Mr. Fang and wasn't happy about it. He spent a fortune hiring people to get revenge. I tried to talk them out of it, but they wouldn't listen. They insisted on following me here. Humphrey, alright. At least you know how to stay out of trouble. Wayne watched as Wu Zhao swiftly distanced himself from the group, and Saga let out a cold snort. He glanced at the 100 or so players behind Wu Zhao, his expression filled with disdain. Did they really think sheer numbers would be enough? Compared to Mr. Fang's swarm of lickers, these people were nothing more than a drop in the ocean. No matter how many came, they were marching to their deaths. Alright, forget about them. Get back and start digging, everyone's waiting for you to get to work. Why yes, got it, Wu Zhao answered quickly, relieved. He turned back to glance at the player team trailing behind him. Saga didn't seem worried in the slightest. He definitely had something up his sleeve to deal with Wayne's group. They were in serious trouble. Not far away, Wayne's team also spotted Saga's figure in the distance. Could that be Mr. Fang? Wayne was just about to lead his team forward at a quicker pace when an eerie feeling crept over him. Rustle, rustle. A soft rustling sound came from the surrounding sand. Burrowing sand locusts? They had just been talking about how they hadn't encountered any mutant worms yet, and now here they were. Wayne immediately raised his hand, signaling his team to halt and hold their position. Then, Chi. Chi. What was that? Wayne's gut twisted as he caught sight of the brown, spiked limbs emerging from the sand. These weren't burrowing sand locusts. The creatures crawling out of the desert were unlike anything they had encountered before. They were a completely different type of mutant worm, one covered in rough, brown spiked carapaces. Whoosh! The first of these mutated lickers lunged at the nearest player. The player hadn't expected the creature to be so fast and instinctively leaped back, triggering the energy shield embedded in his tactical combat suit. Screech! The licker's razor-sharp claws raked across the shield, sending sparks flying. Bang! The player's face paled. Not good. These creatures were on a completely different level from the burrowing sand locusts. Just one strike had drained his energy shield completely. The shield shattered, unleashing a defensive shockwave that blasted both the player and the mutant creature backward. Terrifying mutant creatures. These mutant creatures were far superior in both speed and strength. Chi. More mutated lickers burst from the sand, swarming toward the player team. Quick! Formation! Attack! Wayne's team of elite players immediately reacted to the crisis. The frontline players raised their shields, while the players in the back used the special energy weapons, artifacts, provided by the ship to counterattack. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, blue energy beams targeted the group of lickers, covering them with attacks. What the hell? The spawn's weapon was capable of inflicting additional damage to the mutant worm creatures, but after a round of concentrated fire, the players were shocked to find that these brownish creatures had terrifying self-healing abilities. Even though the beam weapons clearly pierced through their bodies, creating blood holes, they continued to charge forward as if nothing had happened. Chapter 2833, Sucking the wounds caused by the light beams healed at a visible speed. Bang! 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 The licker group endured the beam fire, rapidly charging towards the defensive shields raised by the players at the front lines. The licker's sharp claws scraped across the alloy shields, sparking with a sizzling sound, and the massive impact force sent the shield-bearing players flying backward. Kai! Two lickers on the right side quickly darted through the broken defense and dragged the players who had been knocked down into the sand, disappearing completely. The other players could not react in time and watched helplessly as their comrades were swallowed by the desert. Cold sweat drenched the players. In just half a minute of fighting, two comrades were already missing, their fates unknown. Wayne had never encountered such terrifying mutant worm creatures. Each mutant worm's strength level had already surpassed that of an elite-level creature. As the player's defense line was instantly torn apart, Wayne hastily took an energy grenade from his backpack and threw it in the direction of the approaching creatures. Bang! The energy bomb exploded, sending an invisible shockwave rippling outward. Affected by the shockwave, a large portion of the licker group was momentarily stunned. Run! Wayne shouted, then turned and fled. The rest of the mercenary players immediately started running for their lives. At this point, they didn't care about formations. Anyone who ran slower would die. Several lickers, stunned by the shockwave, stood frozen for 5 seconds before immediately recovering and continuing to chase after Wayne's team. Damn! Wayne looked back after running for a while and saw a vast, brownish sea of mutant worm creatures rapidly closing in on them. There were at least 300 or 400 of them. What kind of monsters were these? What was even more terrifying was that they moved incredibly fast on the sand. The gap between the two sides was rapidly shrinking. Players who ran slower would be tackled by numerous lickers and dragged into the sand, disappearing without a trace. The once 100-strong team lost over 10 more players to the mutant worms as they were tackled and dragged into the sand during the escape. As the rear of their large group was once again about to be overtaken by the mutant worm swarm, Wayne gritted his teeth and threw another shockwave bomb behind them. Boom! The shockwave bombs were the latest technology provided by the ship, and their quantity was limited. They were worth 100,000 credits each, and they were effective against mutant worm creatures. Despite their high price, there was no market for them outside. The ship provided only a small number, and once they were available, players would rush to buy them, reselling them at 10 times the price. Wayne had only exchanged 3 of them in preparation for unforeseen circumstances. The only thing Wayne felt lucky about now was that they hadn't ventured too deep into the desert. As long as they could leave the desert region, they would be safe. In the face of the crisis, Wayne used all 3 shockwave bombs and managed to escape to the desert's edge. The other players followed, each of them leaving the desert region, feeling as though they had narrowly escaped death. They collapsed, sitting in the woods outside the desert, panting heavily. Looking back, the mutant worm creatures gradually dispersed once they reached the edge of the desert and disappeared back into the sand. Wayne calmed himself and looked around. His face was pale with fear. Out of a large mercenary team of over 100 members, fewer than 50 had managed to escape safely. Another mercenary commander walked over to Wayne, eyeing the calm desert with growing suspicion. Those monsters. I don't think they appeared for no reason. Yeah. Wayne gazed at the desert ahead, his eyes filled with deep fear. No wonder they hadn't seen any burrowing sand locusts, there were far more terrifying creatures lurking in the desert. But it was strange. Why were they the only ones attacked? Wu Zhao's group had also ventured into the desert region, yet they hadn't been attacked by the mutant worm creatures. Could it be they had a way of avoiding the mutant worm creatures? Had they known about the threat in advance, which is why they hadn't wanted to bring them deeper into the desert? A flash of anger appeared in Wayne's eyes. Damn Wu Zhao. This can't be left like this. Wayne gritted his teeth, looking at the other two commanders who had suffered heavy losses. He signaled to his trusted subordinates and instructed, "Go find Arkley, tell him we'll agree to his terms. Have him come over immediately." "Yes. I will contact him right away." At the same time, in the desert, Wu Zhao and his group saw Wayne's team, which had nearly been wiped out by the liquor swarm. A chill ran down their spines. Such terrifying creatures. They were lucky they hadn't listened to Wayne's persuasion to let him guide them, otherwise, they'd probably be in the same, if not worse, situation as Wayne's team. An hour later. Inside the Spirit Crystal Mine Cavern. Fang Heng's bomb, which was holding the gemstone, crumbled into dust and quickly dissolved into the air. Hint: the player's zombie clone has completed the refining of the Spirit Gemstone, and the player has obtained a S-level Spirit Gemstone. Hint: the player absorbs the power of the Spirit Gemstone, quality, S, gaining high-tier psychic experience plus 2,891. Hint: the player's high-tier psychic level has reached the maximum, and the player can no longer gain more skill experience. Please try to level up skills. Hint: the player has triggered the Academic Advancement Mission Master Level Psychic Progression. Mission name: Psychic Master Advancement. Mission type: Academic Advancement Mission. Mission description: on your journey to mastering psychic powers, you feel that you have hit another bottleneck. Please find 10 SS-level Spirit Gemstones and successfully pass the Psychic Storm to complete the Master Level Psychic Progression. Master Level. Fang Heng glanced at the game hint and muttered to himself quietly. This was going to be tough. The gemstone refining skill would only max out at S-level Spirit Gemstones. To level up gemstone quality further, other methods would be required. He couldn't obtain them at the moment. That being said, if he wanted to advance quickly, he would have to return to the ship and exchange it for the Master-level skill book. Speaking of which, he had been grinding for so long, so he should have accumulated a fair number of contribution points and S-level Spirit Gemstones. Exchanging for a Master-level skill advancement book shouldn't be a problem, right? Let's check the situation. Fang Heng stood up. Not far away, a box was filled with S-level Spirit Gemstones. Typically, about a ton of ore could yield 0.5 S-level Spirit Gemstones after refining. Fang Heng estimated that exchanging for the Master-level skill advancement book was definitely feasible. Nearby, Saga and the others were still sorting gemstones. Saga was drenched in sweat. Goodness, this was far more tiring than sorting deliveries. In the beginning, since the zombie team was small and the mine ore was limited, Saga could still chat and joke while taking his time. But as the multifunctional combat shovels arrived and Fang Heng's liquor proliferators started appearing, Saga was now exhausted and couldn't even speak. Around the three of them, piles of crystal ore had stacked up into small hills. Chapter 2834, let's make a bet it was too late. Completely too late. The group worked tirelessly, breaking down ore without a moment's rest, but they simply couldn't keep up. The small hills of discarded material beside them were only growing larger. Good work, everyone. Let's take a break. Try to fill your backpacks with as many Spirit Gemstones as possible. We'll head back to turn in a mission first. Saga, nearly numb from sorting, continued breaking down ore even as he listened. Huh? Mr. Fang, we're done? We're still a long way from done, but let's wrap up for now. I need to exchange some contribution points. Alright, Saga said as he packed away the small stool beneath him, stretching his back. A series of popping sounds echoed from his bones. Meanwhile, at the edge of the desert, in the forest, Wayne and the three mercenary team commanders gathered their subordinates, lying in ambush in an area closer to the entrance of the forest. The desert was extremely dangerous. They had suffered a major setback last time and weren't willing to take another risk by heading in again. Instead, they planned to change their strategy. If they couldn't fight them head-on, they would simply wait. Since Mr. Fang had a way to collect spirit gemstones in the forest while avoiding the mutant worms in the desert, there was no point in launching another direct assault. A tactical shift was in order. Regardless of how things played out, Mr. Fang would eventually need to transport his ore back to the ship to exchange it for contribution points. Wayne's team decided to shift their battlefield, setting up an ambush on the only route between the desert and the ship. They were determined to make their enemies pay. Behind the concealed team of players, Arkley and his dozen or so subordinates had just arrived to join the group. Arkley, tall and imposing, came to the large tree where Wayne and his team were lying in ambush, surrounded by his subordinates. He coldly gazed down the narrow path ahead, his tone slightly mocking. Wayne, was it really necessary to be this cautious? Wayne, recalling how he had shared the same thoughts as Arkley not long ago, couldn't help but give a bitter smile. Brother, listen to me. The opponent isn't easy to deal with. How dangerous can they be? Arkley scoffed. Just lure him out. I'll take care of that guy myself. You handle the rest. Once we're done, I want half of the ore field. Deal. Wayne agreed without hesitation. Arkley nodded, then gestured to his men to take their positions. They had been lying in ambush for half an hour when a player hurried over and reported, "Boss, a few people have come out of the desert. They're not Wu Zhao and his group, it should be Mr. Fang. They're heading this way, probably intending to return to the ship, but they aren't carrying any materials." Really? Wayne and the other mercenary group commanders exchanged looks with each other. It felt a little strange. Weren't they supposed to be transporting materials to the ship? Where was the ore? Had they packed it all into their backpacks? That didn't seem possible. Forget about it, get ready to act. Wayne signaled for the team to prepare and turned to Arkley, saying, Arkley, they have a method to enter the desert region without being attacked by the mutant worms. We need to find a way to make them reveal it. Remember, leave some alive. Understood. Hidden within the forest, they watched as Fang Heng and his three companions came into view. Wayne gave the signal. Move. In an instant, the players lying in ambush leaped from the trees, surrounding Fang Heng's group in a tight circle. Fang Heng had long sensed the people ambushing in the forest. However, he felt that their life energy and strength were weak, so he simply walked straight into their trap. They were probably coming for him, and he knew that it would be resolved sooner or later. It might as well be now. Fang Heng scanned his surroundings and finally focused his gaze on the leader, Wayne. Who are you? Wayne sized Fang Heng and his companions up. Wayne, commander of the mercenary team. May I ask who is Mr. Fang? I am. What's the matter? I'm here to settle a score. You killed Cole and my companions. Fang Heng raised an eyebrow, confused. Cole I know, but your companions? They were lured into the desert by you and died at the hands of mutant worms. You must take responsibility for their deaths. Oh, I see. Well then, what do you want? Fang Heng shrugged, a slight smirk appearing on his face. He had guessed correctly. They were indeed here to cause trouble. It worked out well for him, though. Saga and the others were sorting through materials at a very slow pace, and Wu Zhao's team had to keep making trips back and forth to deliver the combat shovels. The gemstone refining still lacked a lot of labor. Now, people were practically offering themselves as labor. Since they were here, he could make sure they all stayed as coolies. Fang Heng had seemingly vanished, then reappeared in front of him with a sudden burst of speed. Wayne coldly said, Cole paid for your life. You're the one responsible for my companions' deaths. If you want to make it right, only you will answer for it. Your companions can leave. Yes, that's fair enough. Wayne stared intently at Fang Heng's every move, but his pupils suddenly contracted. Fang Heng had seemingly vanished, then reappeared in front of him with a sudden burst of speed. Bang! Wayne was horrified. They had been at a safe distance, but in an instant, Fang Heng had closed the gap and appeared right in front of him, shattering his energy shield with a deafening explosion. The shockwave from the explosion sent Wayne flying backward, but before he could react, a hand gripped him tightly, pinning him in place. As the shockwave dispersed, Fang Heng held Wayne by the neck and lifted him off the ground, a look of disdain on his face. What's the matter? With this level of strength, you think you can cause trouble? Not good. Everything happened so fast that the mercenaries around them only realized their leader was controlled by Fang Heng after the explosion. Their hearts skipped a beat as they quickly raised their guns toward him. Everyone, stop. Wayne's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. For some reason, when Fang Heng grabbed him, he completely lost control of his body. Wayne was certain of one thing. If the surrounding players fired, Fang Heng wouldn't be harmed, but they would certainly die. Wu Zhao had said that Fang Heng wasn't as strong as Arkley. Arkley was indeed formidable, but Wayne now understood that Fang Heng and Arkley followed different paths. Fang Heng's strange movement ability was even more terrifying than Arkley's. Wayne's heart raced in panic, But he forced himself to stay calm, fixing his gaze on Feng Heng. What do you want? You want to kill me? I'll give you a chance. If you can't kill me, you'll help me with something. Wayne gritted his teeth. Fine. The moment Feng Heng released his grip on Wayne's neck, Wayne suddenly regained control of his body. He quickly jumped backward and shouted, Arkley. What are you waiting for? Feng Heng turned toward Wayne's shout and saw a burly middle-aged man step out from the crowd. Arkley was already a large figure, but now his muscles were bulging, emitting a visible crimson aura. He stared at Feng Heng with intense battle intent in his eyes. Chapter 2835, Selection Arkley. Arkley cupped his fists toward Feng Heng, his heart surging with intense battle will. A formidable opponent. Feng Heng's movements just now had been so fast that even he couldn't fully capture them. So from the very beginning, he had no intention of testing the waters. He directly went all out, entering the vampire's secret technique Burning Blood state at full power. Feng Heng looked at Arkley, his eyes showing a hint of interest. The lifeblood fluctuations were quite impressive. But the control was too weak. Could he be a vampire player? Some time ago, to maintain the stability of the clan, and since Feng Heng also needed a large number of high-tier vampire members to help in the Death Realm war against disaster and assist in transporting materials, he had ordered the princes of the vampires to grant a portion of the clan members high-tier dimensional energy. Among these clansmen, there were a few players who had undergone a rigorous selection process. Loyalty was the most important criterion for evaluation, followed by the willingness to voluntarily accept the vampire spell bestowed by the prince and swear absolute allegiance. Even so, for safety reasons, these players were not allowed to participate in high-level missions in the Death Realm. Feng Heng had glanced briefly at the list back then. Right. There seemed to be a name Arkley on it. At this moment, affected by the lifeblood fluctuations released by Arkley, the surrounding players all showed solemn expressions and retreated to the outer edge of the battle circle. Arkley hadn't even made a move yet, but just the lifeblood fluctuations he emitted were enough to make people tremble. A few days ago, Arkley had led his vampire squad of over 10 members into a swarm of mutant worms. Relying on his formidable physical strength and the vampire's rapid regeneration, he forcibly broke through the encirclement. That battle made him a legend. The players held their breath, intently watching Arkley's every move. The lifeblood energy spreading from Arkley grew stronger, even making the air reek of blood. Even Saga and the others standing beside Feng Heng could sense it. Saga carefully swallowed a mouthful of saliva and whispered, I've seen Arkley's records. His strength is already formidable, and he's also a high-tier vampire member. With his terrifying bloodline abilities, his power is immense. Mr. Feng is the world lord of the vampire apocalypse, Zate said doubtfully. I suppose his bloodline level shouldn't be low either, right? Of course, it's also possible that he conquered the vampire world using other powers. It wouldn't be. Su Guantong shook her head and said, Feng Heng possessed multiple bloodline abilities. His vampire bloodline was particularly strong. Do you remember the moves we saw in the desert before? That was a special technique of the vampires. Well, that's it then. He's doomed. Zaka looked at Arkley with a gaze filled with sympathy and had already begun silently mourning for him. That kid was ridiculously unlucky. He had managed to offend the ancestor of the vampires. If he wasn't doomed, then who would be? Pa. Arkley stomped forcefully on the ground, creating a shallow pit as his body shot toward Feng Heng at high speed. Pa. What? Arkley's pupils suddenly shrank. His punch was effortlessly caught by Feng Heng's right hand. Looking down on me? Arkley shouted, his right arm's muscles swelling explosively once more. But it was still useless. Arkley was shocked to find that no matter how much strength he exerted, his right hand remained trapped as if clamped down by an iron grip, completely immovable. His lifeblood ripples had already been pushed to their limit, yet his opponent stood like an immovable mountain. Arkley looked at Feng Heng, his eyes filled with fear. What kind of terrifying strength was this? Even when facing a Duke of the Vampires, he had never felt this level of suppression. Under the forceful surge of his lifeblood power, tiny droplets of blood began to emerge faintly under his skin. Yet, it was completely ineffective. His fist was still firmly held in place by a single hand. Arkley stared at Feng Heng, his eyes bloodshot. Try this move then. The blood seeping from Arkley's body formed small blood beads, gradually levitating in midair. Gritting his teeth, Arkley squeezed out 2 words, blood explosion. Whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. The levitating blood beads instantly shot toward Feng Heng. Seeing this, Feng Heng's lips curled into a mocking smile. Hey, quite a mix of techniques you've learned. What? Arkley's face was once again filled with disbelief. Feng Heng had not attempted to resist or defend, yet the blood beads, which were formed from his blood essence, simply dissipated into the air as they neared Feng Heng. The blood explosion ability had completely failed. Fang Hang fixed his gaze on Arkley, a trace of crimson flashing in his eyes. Arkley noticed the change in Fang Hang's eyes, his expression shifting dramatically. A vampire. His opponent was also a vampire. And judging from the brief exchange, his strength was far superior. Among the younger generation of vampires, Arkley was sure he had never seen this person before. Was he a duke of the vampires? Or perhaps a prince? As Arkley was caught in uncertainty, he suddenly felt the force restraining his hand loosen. Just as he was about to react, he noticed something horrifying. His blood flow was gradually slowing down. What? Arkley was utterly shocked. Blood manipulation. But instead of acceleration, it was slowing down. He had never heard of such an ability before. And it was affecting him? This had to be at least Duke-level power. Arkley stood frozen, struggling to stabilize his body. But it was futile. The burning heat in his skin gradually faded, and as his blood circulation slowed, his strength began to drain away. A chilling sensation crept over him. Arkley stared at the man before him in terror. Fang Hang was merely showing off his abilities. With such overwhelming power, taking his life would be effortless. Who was he? Mr. Fang. The surname was Fang. Could it be? A sudden realization struck Arkley, and everything suddenly made sense. Pa. Arkley dropped to his knees, immediately surrendering. Bowing his head, he spoke in a low voice. This subordinate was blind and failed to recognize the ancestor. Please punish me as you see fit. The onlookers couldn't hear what Arkley said, but they were all equally shocked. The battle hadn't been nearly as intense as they had imagined. From their perspective, Arkley had thrown a punch that was caught by Fang Hang. After a brief standoff, Arkley had suddenly knelt down and surrendered? What did this mean? Even if he lost, there was no need to kneel and submit, right? Who exactly was this guy? Get up. Arkley felt his blood circulation return to normal, regaining control over his body. He was relieved beyond measure and quickly stood up, lowering his head respectfully, not daring to meet Fang Hang's gaze. You're just in time. There's something I need you to do. Arkley's heart trembled. He immediately clasped his fists and said, I will obey the ancestor's orders. What did you just call me? Ah. Arkley was startled for a moment, then quickly adjusted himself. I will follow Mr. Fang's orders. Not bad, you're quick to learn. Fang Hang patted Arkley on the shoulder with satisfaction before walking past him. He turned to Wayne and his group, and asked, All right, Wayne, I've given you the opportunity. What now? Do you still want to try again? Chapter 2836, Advancement. Wayne looked at Arkley, who was standing behind Fang Hang, appearing utterly submissive and obedient. For a moment, he stood there, dumbfounded, unable to speak. What did this mean? What was Arkley up to? Even if he couldn't win, there was no need to act like this. Were they putting on a show together to fool him? Fang Hang said coldly, Since you've accepted your loss, Arkley, I'll leave them to you. Yes, Mr. Fang. Arkley took a deep breath. He had just hovered on the edge of death. It was all thanks to the ancestor's generosity that he had not perished. After processing everything, Arkley was overwhelmed with joy. That was Fang Hang. The vampire ancestor. His misfortune had turned into fortune. Very few people in the outside world knew the internal workings of the vampires. Only those who reached the marquee level would truly understand who their real vampire king was. And even fewer knew the true reason why the vampire bloodline had been able to evolve so terrifyingly in such a short time. It was all thanks to the ancestor. Every vampire prince treated the ancestor with absolute reverence and loyalty. The lower-ranked vampires didn't even dare to call him by name, they could only refer to him as the ancestor. If he could get on Mr. Fang's good side, even the slightest benefit that slipped through his fingers, or just a single word from Fang Hang, would be worth decades of effort for Arkley. TCH, lucky bastard. He hit the jackpot. Zaka, seeing Fang Hang whisper a few words into Arkley's ear, curled his lips in envy. If only he were a vampire too. Wayne and the remaining two mercenary commanders stood there silently, their minds racing for a solution. Fighting was no longer an option. Even more ridiculous was the fact that Arkley had defected just like that. Then they saw Arkley walking back toward them. Wayne stared into Arkley's eyes, trying to find some answers there. Arkley, what is the meaning of this? Don't ask. Arkley looked at Wayne and shook his head, his expression serious. Out of respect for our past relationship, I advise you to cut ties with Cole as soon as possible. Mr. Fang has agreed to let bygones be bygones regarding what happened before. Also, from now on, if any of you want to go against Mr. Fang, you'll have to get through me first. Huh? Wayne was stunned. What was going on? What kind of spell had that kid cast on Arkley? Alright, now let's talk business. Since you've already admitted defeat, you'll work for Mr. Fang in this game. Do your job properly, and you'll be rewarded. Don't get any funny ideas, I'll be watching you. Now, gather your men and follow me back to the ship. Wayne was even more bewildered. Wait. What was happening? Just a moment ago, they were fighting side by side in the same trench. And now Arkley was acting like their supervisor? Are you serious? I'm not joking. If you don't want to die, hurry up. Wait. Wayne took a deep breath, stopping Arkley before he could leave. What exactly are we going back to the ship for? To carry shovels. Huh? Under the ship. A large pile of combat shovels was stacked on the ground. Every now and then, player squads would pass by, casting strange glances at the pile. Since the number of combat shovels exchanged was too high, Wu Zhao couldn't take them all at once. The ship could only initiate a transition every 2 hours, so the shovels had to be temporarily stored under the ship. This stuff was just lying around, and yet no one dared to take any. Wu Zhao had just borrowed money to buy another batch of combat shovels. As he was about to transport them back, something caught his attention. He turned his head and saw Wayne's team returning to the ship area from a distance. The whole team looked utterly dejected. What happened to them? Earlier, he had heard that they were scheming some kind of revenge plan. Acting all secretive, avoiding everyone, seemingly plotting something sinister. Did Mr. Fang end up teaching them another lesson? Huh? Arkley was there too? Mr. Fang? As Wu Zhao saw Fang Hang following behind the team, a shiver ran down his spine. Wu Zhao. Zaken noticed Wu Zhao and called out to him. Wu Zhao immediately walked over, glancing at Fang Hang next to him with a somewhat silly smile. He asked, "Boss, is there anything else you need?" "Good job. These new recruits are fresh, so teach them the rules. Later, take them and move a batch of shovels over." "Ah. New recruits?" Wu Zhao followed Zake's gaze and saw Wayne's team standing nearby, their faces full of frustration. "Alright, got it. Wow, so Wayne and his crew were also here to move shovels?" Wu Zhao quickly pieced everything together and let out a secret sigh of relief. Fortunately, he had been smart and hadn't been swayed by Wayne's persuasion to continue opposing Mr. Fang. For some reason, Wu Zhao suddenly felt a surge of schadenfreude. He had already warned Wayne not to mess with Mr. Fang. And now look. They were doing the same thing, moving shovels. "You're an experienced worker, so do well, and you learn some performance rewards," Zaka said, patting Wu Zhao on the shoulder before humming and walking toward the ship's transition beam with Fang Hang. Yes. Wu Zhao respectfully watched Fang Hang and his group leave. Cough. Once they had left, Wu Zhao cleared his throat. "Commander Wayne, please have your team pack these shovels into your backpacks. Fill them up, and we'll be leaving in 5 minutes." Meanwhile, on the ship, Captain Zoran was listening to a detailed report from his subordinates, learning about the battle between Fang Hang, Wayne, and Arkley's team. Fang Hang? He was that powerful? Even Arkley couldn't defeat him? He couldn't even withstand one move from him? Zoran felt suspicious. What was even stranger was that Fang Hang's team had already exchanged more than 10,000 combat shovels. Was that enough? What exactly did they need so many combat shovels for? As Zoran was pondering, several transition beams flashed past beside the ship. Fang Hang and his team entered the transition passage and headed straight to the contribution exchange station. An S-level spirit gemstone could be exchanged for 100,000 contribution points. Zaka submitted the 120 spirit gemstones in his backpack, immediately earning a huge 20 million contribution points reward, causing him to gasp in surprise. Wow! So much? Master-level psychic abilities required a full 100 million contribution points. Once the group had gathered enough contribution points and traded them with Fang Hang began the exchange. Hint: the player consumes 100 million battlefield contribution points, exchange for Master-level Psychic Advancement Book. A book with a pale white cover appeared in Fang Hang's hand. Buzz. The academic book quickly dissolved into white light spots, merging into Fang Hang's body. Hint: detected that the player has met the item prerequisites, advancing to Master-level Psychic. Hint: the player's current high-tier psychic skill has been replaced. Skill: Master-level Psychic, Level 1. Type: Academic Discipline. Description: open your mind and embrace the power of the mind. Additional effects: plus 30 to base spirit, plus 30 to base will, and an additional plus 3 spirit and will per skill level. Additional skill: Mental Shock. Additional skill: Mind Control. Description: the skill can subtly increase others' favorability towards you during interactions, making it easier to persuade them. The player can also actively use this skill to control others. The success rate is low, and failure will drastically decrease favorability. Chapter 2837, Target. Fang Hang looked at the game hint. After leveling up his psychic skill to master level, in addition to improving his basic attributes, he gained a new special skill, Mind Control. It could subtly influence the favorability rating of others. He could even actively release it to temporarily control and confuse his target. Not bad. Feng Heng lowered his head and checked the exchange column in the ship again. Grandmaster level Psychic was still available in the exchange list. There was still one available redemption. However, the price was staggering, even to him. A full 5 billion. He was still far from having enough contribution points. Estimating carefully, if he completely refined the entire mining area, he should barely be able to gather enough. However, maxing out master level Psychic would also consume many spirit gemstones. After advancing to the Grandmaster level, he would need even more spirit gemstones to level up. He figured it still wouldn't be enough. But that wasn't a problem. After all, this world had more than one mining site. He just needed to find a few more and grind a little longer. Since he was already here, he spent 2 days maxing out Psychic first. 5 minutes later, Captain Zoran watched as Feng Heng used the transition passage to leave the ship's cabin. Beside him, a soldier stepped forward and nodded, saying, "We have verified it." He redeemed an advancement book from Master Level Psychic. What? Master Level? Zoran's pupils shrank instantly. Among players, those who could advance their disciplines to the Master Level were extremely rare. That kid. Impressive. But in such a short time, where did he get so many contribution points? The soldier explained, "We investigated. Aside from a large portion of contribution points gained from kills, Feng Heng and his group provided a significant number of S-level spirit gemstones, earning them a large amount of contribution points." Zoran narrowed his eyes slightly. "Have you confirmed Feng Heng's identity?" "Yes, we conducted an investigation. His background checks out. Reportedly, he saved a senator's granddaughter while traveling to the Western District Federation on a train, which led to the security department granting him special approval to join the Star Map project." Zoran let out a soft hum. Being able to gather so many contribution points in such a short time wasn't just due to Feng Heng's own strength, it was closely tied to the newly discovered mining area. Perhaps they were extremely lucky and had stumbled upon several rich mining sites. For Zoran, this was good news. If Feng Heng could amass a large number of contribution points, they could also profit handsomely as middlemen, earning a sizable margin. But that man. As they spoke, a flash of blue spatial transmission light flickered. A middle-aged man wearing a wide cowboy hat stepped out of the teleportation passage, waving at Zoran. "Captain Zoran, I'm back. I just saw quite a commotion down below." "Joachim." Zoran looked at the newcomer and thought to himself, "Speak of the devil." Joachim was the commander of a mercenary group. While his personal strength didn't match Arkley's, his team was formidable, and he was known for his ruthless methods. "Captain, I heard there's a newcomer here, seems like he's very powerful. He even took down Cole?" "Yes, that's right. He just left." "Really? I also heard he discovered a new psychic ore mining area. The resource reserves there are quite substantial." Zoran didn't respond. Instead, he looked at Joachim and said, "I know what you're about to ask. I advise you not to take action against him." "Oh?" Joachim raised an eyebrow. "And why is that?" "They've already secured the mining area and started operations smoothly. If you interfere, it will cause unnecessary conflicts and bring trouble to the Star Map project, something I don't want to see." "Captain, you're as rigid as ever." Joachim chuckled and said, "I, on the other hand, think that if I lend a hand, the ore extraction could proceed even more efficiently. That would serve the Western District Federation better, wouldn't it? You can do whatever you want, but the ship won't provide you with any convenience. And let me remind you, Joachim, I don't care who's backing you. If your actions threaten the Star Map project, I won't let it slide. Whatever. I'm off, Captain." Joachim shrugged, waved, and left. He didn't take Zoran's warning seriously. To Joachim, Captain Zoran was just an old-fashioned man. Before coming here, he had already spoken with Cole in advance. As long as he could eliminate Feng Heng, Cole promised to offer him more assistance in future games. Additionally, he could take control of the ore site. Killing two birds with one stone, why not? As he pondered, one of his subordinates approached and whispered something in his ear. "Hey. Go on." Listening to the intelligence gathered by his subordinate, Joachim sneered and couldn't help but think, even Arkley had lost to that guy. And from the sound of it, Feng Heng had defeated Arkley effortlessly. It seemed his combat strength was formidable. TSK, TSK, TSK. Just another brute relying on physical strength. In a direct fight, Joachim was certain he would lose. But there were always other ways. After a brief moment of thought, a cold smirk appeared on Joachim's lips. "Remember that little thing we found before?" The subordinate stiffened slightly and whispered, "Captain, are you referring to the mutant worm eggs?" "That's right. Those people managed to avoid the burrowing sand locusts' attacks, likely by using some kind of aura concealment. I'm curious, can they also mask the scent of mutant worm eggs? Joachim looked at his subordinate with a glint of malice in his eyes and instructed, they sought Wayne's people to help with the mining, didn't they? You're quite familiar with some of Wayne's men. Find an opportunity to plant the worm eggs inside them. When the time comes, someone else will take care of Mr. Fang for us. After advancing to master-level psychic, Fang Hang led his team back to the central desert forest. After making some quick arrangements, he hurried into the cavern to begin secluded cultivation, grinding his psychic level. He left the outside matters to Saga, Arkley, and Arkley's trusted vampire subordinates. As the number of zombie clones increased and more combat shovels were obtained, the efficiency of the mining operation improved drastically. Fang Hang had to optimize the ore sorting process once again. Zombies excavated the ore and transported it out of the cavern in carts. Then, Wayne's group of players sorted the ore into batches and tied them to the backs of mutant lickers, which carried them deeper into the forest. After becoming familiar with the process, Wayne still felt his scalp tingling. Good grief. The terrifying creatures they had seen in the desert turned out to be Mr. Fang's summoned beasts. And Mr. Fang was even using summoned creatures to haul ore. Chapter 2838, Shovel Transport Team. So, the reason they hadn't seen any burrowing sand locusts in the desert earlier was that the mutant summoned creatures had already eliminated them. And even Wayne couldn't help but glance toward the depths of the forest. From the very beginning, he had found it strange why Mr. Fang had transported so many combat shovels into the forest. Now that he had seen Mr. Fang's summoned creatures, he finally understood. Mr. Fang was using his summoned creatures to mine spirit crystal ore. That explained why they needed so many combat shovels and how they had managed to earn so many contribution points. Just as Wayne was marveling at Fang Hang's special ability, a group of players escorting another batch of combat shovels arrived at the forest. The supply of combat shovels was still coming in continuously. It seemed that they still didn't have enough. So, just how many summoned creatures did Mr. Fang have? Wayne swallowed hard. He had a premonition. The number of Mr. Fang's summoned creatures must have been terrifyingly high. Of course, this was still just his speculation. How could he confirm it? Got it. Wayne took a deep breath, thinking carefully, and opened his surveying instrument for a closer look. If his guess was correct. Indeed. Seeing the energy fluctuation readings on the surveying instrument, Wayne raised an eyebrow. The intensity of the ore response fluctuations within the entire mining area had decreased significantly. So, from the moment the mining area was discovered, in less than half a day, more than 1/10 of the mining had already been completed. And judging by the trend, the mining speed was still increasing rapidly. The more Wayne thought about it, the more shocked he felt. At this rate, the entire mining area might be completely excavated before tomorrow? Just then, a subordinate rushed over, interrupting Wayne's thoughts. Boss Wayne. Something's wrong over there. Wayne looked up at his subordinate and asked, what is it? It's the infected worms. We've found infected worms. Take me there. Hearing this, Wayne's heart skipped a beat. He immediately stopped sorting the ore and followed his subordinate to check the situation. At the outskirts of the forest, near the supply route for the combat shovels, a commotion had broken out among the player team. A group of people had gathered in a circle. In the center, one player stood with a pale face. On the ground, a puddle of foul-smelling green slime remained. The moment Wayne saw the sticky substance, his expression changed drastically. Damn it. Infected mutant worms. Quick. Go get Mr. Fang. Before anyone could run off to inform him, Zaka and Sugwantong saw the commotion outside and hurried over to check the situation. What happened? It's an ancient infected worm, Wayne questioned the player. When were you infected? I don't know. The infected player, terrified out of his wits, calmed down and shook his head repeatedly. I swear, I've been with everyone this whole time. I never went near any infected worms. Seeing how tense everyone looked, Zaka found it odd and asked, what exactly is an infected worm? Wayne took a deep breath and explained, you two just entered the game not long ago, so you might not fully understand how terrifying infected worms are. You can roughly think of them as an ancient mutant worm species in this game world. A while ago, we were on a mission with the Federation team. While exploring some underground ruins, we discovered a cluster of ancient hibernating worm eggs. Once the eggs hatched, they released tiny mutant worms that could infect humans. As these larvae developed, they released massive amounts of pheromones, which in turn attracted hordes of mutant creatures. Wayne said, this place is very dangerous. Soon, a large number of mutant worm creatures will gather at the pheromone location. We still have some time, but we need to immediately report to Mr. Fang to execute an evacuation. Zaka exchanged glances with Sugwantong. Evacuate? That's serious? Wayne didn't seem to be lying. But something felt off. Infected worms weren't exactly common. And now they just happened to appear here? Sugwantong asked, where is the infected worm now? We killed it as soon as we found it, but it was too late. The pheromones have already leaked. This area has been locked onto by the mutant swarm, and they're already on their way. Mr. Fang is busy handling an urgent matter and told us not to disturb him. Zaka glanced at the others before pausing briefly and continuing, I don't think this little issue is worth bothering Mr. Fang over. If a swarm does arrive, we can ask for his opinion then. The other players' expressions changed instantly. They had seen how terrifying the swarms could be. Stay here? Wasn't that just waiting for death? Wayne grew anxious and turned to Arkley. Arkley, say something. You were there, too. The mutant swarm isn't as easy to deal with as they think. Well. Arkley thought for a moment. Mutant swarms were indeed frightening. It should be noted that the Federation ship is being attacked repeatedly by mutant worms, not only due to the invaders but also because of the residual pheromones left aboard the ship. The Federation has scrubbed and cleaned the ship hundreds of times in an attempt to remove the pheromone traces, but despite their efforts, a small amount remains, causing a continuous influx of mutant worms to assault the ship. But, compared to the old ancestor, these mutant swarms were nothing. It shouldn't be a problem. Arkley shook his head and said firmly, until Mr. Fang gives new orders, please continue with the ore sorting work. Huh? Wayne was completely stunned after hearing Arkley's words. What kind of medicine did Mr. Fang give Arkley that made him fearless, to the point of not even fearing death? Alright. Zaka turned to Wayne and said, since you're so worried, why don't you join me and form a small team to check out the desert perimeter? If we encounter trouble, we can always come back and show respect to Mr. Fang. But, Wayne thought to himself, if they actually encountered a mutant worm swarm, would they be able to come back in time to warn everyone? Is it too late by then? Alright. Let's head out immediately. Wayne didn't have time to think further. Having the chance to react was better than staying here and waiting to die. He quickly nodded in agreement. Zaka and Sugwantong exchanged a glance, and swiftly picked a team of 7, setting off on their energy crystal hoverboards towards the desert's edge. 10 minutes later, they approached the desert's perimeter. Zaka narrowed his eyes. Beyond the desert, in the distant forest, massive swarms of black and red shadows emerged. Damn. They really came. Zaka cursed inwardly. It was the same species he had seen on the ship before, bone-eating fungal ants. A huge swarm of dark red ants clustered together, covering the ground like a thick, rolling tide, rapidly advancing toward the desert. It looked as if the land had been draped in a black and red shroud. Wayne's heart pounded wildly at the sight. He immediately suggested, the majority of the swarm is coming from the northwest. If we head back now and report, we can escape through another direction.